Marvel. Starts with Silver Superman template at the beginning. Chapter 1. What does it feel like to travel through? As a past person, Chen Tian will tell you that unless you had a miserable life in the original world, if you have a choice, don't go through it. Especially in a dangerous world. In this world, there are countless ability people who were born or gained power by accident, mutant. In addition, there are even aliens, mythical gods, demons, etc., which are very chaotic and dangerous, and extraordinary battles take place all the time. Thinking of this, Chen Tian couldn't help sighing softly, because he really didn't want to travel through. As a famous university student, he joined a large enterprise right after graduation, and he entered the management team in just 3 years, with an annual salary of 500,000 plus. For Chen Tian, who was born in an ordinary family, it only takes a few more years or 10 years of hard work to become a superior person with free wealth. At that time, luxury cars and beauties will have everything. The most important thing is that the previous world was very safe. Although there were some local conflicts outside, it was very peaceful inside. Unlike this world, there are many dangers. Ordinary people, if they don't pay attention, will encounter a super ability person fighting, and then be killed by the aftermath of the battle, without even a chance to complain. But fortunately, Chen Tian after crossing over is quite lucky, not only has super ability, but also has a gold finger, so he will not be as miserable as those ordinary people. West, what's wrong with you? Hearing Chen Tian's low sigh, sitting beside him, the girl with long flaxen hair looked over curiously. Hearing this, Chen Tian shook his head. It's nothing, I just feel a little bored. I can't go out and walk around every day except in class. The girl couldn't help comforting. No way, we mutants have always been feared and rejected by ordinary people because of ability. Speaking of this, the girl said with some emotion, West, you haven't been here for a long time, and you still don't understand. If it weren't for the Xavier's school founded by a professor who took us in and gave us mutants a shelter. Many people here may be subjected to inhumane experiments in a laboratory, or hiding in a corner of a city, living a miserable life with no food and no fixed place to live. After speaking, the girl's eyes showed a touch of gratitude and respect. Katie, you're right, Chen Tian nodded in agreement. The girl's name is Katie Pride, a 17-year-old white girl whom Chen Tian met at school. As a white girl, although Katie is only 17 years old, her figure has already begun to develop, and she looks bumpy at a young age. Coupled with beautiful facial features, it has a high popularity in this mutant school called Xavier. Yes, Xavier School. That is, in the X-Men, the school founded by Professor X, the students are all mutant teenagers. Katie, the girl who talked to Chen Tian, is the very famous Shadowcat in X-Men 3, who has the ability to penetrate and lead people to ignore material obstacles. And Chen Tian, named Wester Chen in this world, is 15 years old. Born into an overseas Chinese family in Mexico, his mother is white. Therefore, due to the mixed blood, although Chen Tian in this life has black hair and black pupils, his facial features are three-dimensional and handsome, with clear outlines, and he looks very handsome. Coupled with his height of 1.75 meters, and the consciousness of an adult, he looks much more mature. To say that he is 15 years old, it is better to say that he is more like a college student. So sitting with Katie in a group of seniors doesn't seem out of line at all. Today is Saturday, there is only one interactive class, the class is the vice captain of X-Men who returned from going out, Orlo Monroe with the title of Storm. At the moment on the huge lawn, in addition to the senior students where Chen Tian is, there are two groups of junior high school students. Roar. At this moment, a gust of wind came from above, and everyone who was blowing couldn't open their eyes. For a moment, the trees swayed around the lawn, the weeds danced wildly, and a woman with white hair in a black tight battle suit fell from the sky. Behind her, the cloak fluttered, surrounded by substantial winds, and blue lightning flashed, exuding a strong coercion. When this came out, the elementary school students around were shocked and their eyes widened. When his feet landed, Orlo's thoughts moved, and the surrounding wind and thunder light dissipated, and a smile appeared on his face. Good morning, everyone. Noticing the adoring expressions on those children's faces, Orlo was very satisfied with the effect of his appearance. Hello, teacher, the elementary and middle school students called politely. However, compared to these restrained elementary school students, junior high school students, and those high school students, they seemed more casual, and some people even raised their hands and asked curiously. Teacher, I heard that you went out this time to arrest a criminal mutant. Is that person strong? Ross, aren't you talking nonsense? That mutant must be very strong, otherwise, why do you need Teacher Orlo to take action? You just don't know what that mutant's ability is. A girl asked curiously, Teacher, can you tell us about this mission? The purpose of the interactive class is to let these students not be afraid, but to be afraid of their own mutant identity and strange appearance. So facing the students' questions, Orlo smiled and nodded. Yes, this time the mission is in Yinguo, and the target is a mutant named Troc. This person has the ability to stealth, and has committed crimes many times, specializing in sneaking into the homes of some beautiful young ladies. When Orlo explained the details of this mission in detail, Chen Tian, who was sitting on the grass, seemed to be listening carefully, but his actual consciousness had already been placed in his body. At the moment, under the sunlight, he felt warm all over his body, and the energy from the sun was swallowed, transformed, and absorbed by countless cells. Chen Tian's susceptive perception realized that after absorbing the energy of the sun, his body strengthens at a terrifying speed, and the strength in his body continues to increase. The speed of this kind of power improvement is beyond the imagination of ordinary people. After your efforts to absorb sunlight, the cells of your whole body have been evolved, and the physique is +3. Single quote. Your spirit +1. Your strength +4. Hearing the reminders that kept ringing in his mind, Chen Zan's thoughts moved, and in his eyes, a transparent page that only he could see appeared. Host: Chen Tian. Race: human. Bloodline: Krypton Superman, Bronze Age. Constitution: 205, 10 points for ordinary people. Spirit: 105. Strength: 230, grip strength 3 tons. Agility: 221. X-Gene ability: Energy Rage level 1. Storage space: 1x1. Glancing at the changes in his own attributes, Chen Tian couldn't help but exclaim, Superman is indeed a bug in the DC universe. On the day he traveled to this world, Chen Tian activated the system and drew the reward, the Krypton Superman template. Although this template is only Bronze Age Superman and has only been integrated for a week. But under the sunlight, within a few days, Chen Tian's physique soared to 20 times that of an ordinary person, and his grip strength reached 3 tons. 3 tons doesn't sound very strong. But with the strength of 3 tons, Chen Zan could easily crush a person to death and overturn a van with one hand. In addition, the strong physique also makes Chen Tian's facial features perception, such as vision, and reactions, and the flexibility and coordination of his body surpass that of ordinary people many times. Such strength has actually surpassed most of the mutants present. Although they are also mutants, most of the mutants in Xavier School are not strong and their abilities are average. So only a few can become X-Men. The original intention of the school was just that Professor X wanted to shelter those excluded and hostile mutant teenagers, teach them knowledge and give them love. Avoid them falling and going astray. For example, West Chen, a former junior high school student, quarreled with a classmate at school, and was emotionally excited by the X-Gene awakening, and the burst of energy injured that classmate. Because I saw a lot of people at that time, it had a great impact on the school. From that day onwards, the students around him were afraid, and repelled, and even his family was a little alienated, which made it difficult for the teenager to adapt. In the end, he agreed to the sudden appearance of Cyclops, and came to Xavier School with him. The day that he came to the school was also the day that Chen Tian crossed over. However, Chen Tian is not very interested in the past of this body, he is more concerned about the present and the future. After all, this is a world where strength is respected. Thinking of this, Chen Tian was very fortunate that he had drawn the Superman template that his strength would increase at an astonishing rate as long as he basked in the sun. Although it is Superman in the Bronze Age, and it is still very weak, even Superman's steel body and superheat ray ability have not been awakening. But the future is promising. After all, the template he got was from Superman, not any other ordinary Kryptonian. In the DC universe, although Superman and Kryptonian are also from Krypton, they can actually be regarded as two kinds of existence. Because the former has infinite potential to evolve into a silver Superman or a golden Superman. Because of the bombing of special effects movies for many years, Chen Tian has some understanding of DC and Marvel universes, such as Superman. From the timeline, power level, and limit, the Superman of the DC universe can be divided into Bronze Age, Silver Age, and Golden Age. This bronze, silver, and gold does not refer to rank, but a state of Superman. At the same time, bronze, silver and gold are not the relationship between superiors and inferiors. It is the strength of Superman in the three comics periods. In the original setting, the Silver Age Dakao was stronger than the Golden Dakao in some respects. And the strength of the Golden Super can blast the multi-universe with one punch, create five-dimensional people at will, reverse time and space, and modify the rules of the universe. Likewise, even in the weakest Bronze Age, the peak Superman's power reached millions of tons and moved hundreds of times faster than the speed of sound. There are also indestructible, can withstand nuclear weapons, the steel body, and the superheat ray stronger than Cyclops. In addition, there are X-eyes that can see through matter, listening all over the world without a medium, roar suction to form a tornado and other abilities comparable to the gods on Earth. Definitely, Superman also has obvious weaknesses. In the Bronze Age, Superman's magic defense is very low. Although it can be quickly evaded, it cannot defend against some powerful magics such as directional, locking, and even curses that directly act on the body. As for kryptonite, this thing can be ignored. Time passed in Chen Tian's thoughts. Okay, let's talk about it here today, and then everyone can move freely. Storm Orlo clapped his hands and announced the end of the interactive class. Goodbye, teacher. Hot, let's go play basketball, but don't use ability. Lanster, I just learned about butter bread yesterday, would you like to try it? Meister. With Orlo's announcement of disbandment, the students suddenly became noisy, and those who met to play went to play, and those who made snacks together made snacks. Just as Chen Tian also stood up and was about to find a place to continue basking in the sun, he saw Storm walking towards him. Looking at Chen Tian, who was still childish on his face, Storm smiled. You are West, I heard about you from Coster. Chen Tian was a little surprised, and then politely said, Hello, Teacher Orlo. Let's walk together. Orlo, who approached, sent an invitation to Chen Tian. Chen Tian nodded. It's an honor. Walking on the campus, Orlo said first, West, are you used to spending the past few days at school? Facing Storm's concern, Chen Tian said politely, Thank you, teacher, for your concern. The past few days have been very good at school, and everyone is very enthusiastic. That's good. Orlo nodded and said with a smile, This is our mutant's home. Don't feel restrained here, or it will be our teacher's dereliction of duty. By the way, West, I heard that you not only awakening the ability of energy explosion, but also derive the effect of body strengthening, and the fist power has reached a ton. Yes, teacher. Chen Tian nodded without denying it. Or rather, these are what he showed on purpose. Although it was cool to pretend to be a pig and eat a tiger, and at the same time, the wood show was in the forest, and the wind would destroy it, but Chen Tian did not fully agree with these words. Because pretending to be a pig for a long time can easily become a pig. And a person, mediocre, no one will pay attention to you, but you will not get enough attention, and you will lose a lot of opportunities. Therefore, it is necessary to properly show a certain value and ability in order to gain more attention and the right to speak. For example, now, if it wasn't for Chen Tian's extraordinary ability the day before yesterday, would Storm just come back to school and chat with him? Think more. So Chen Tian's face showed a touch of worry. Teacher, I found that my strength is still getting stronger, will there be any bad mutation? Noticing the worry on Chen Tian's face, Storm gently comforted, West, don't be afraid and fear your own strength. Strength growth is actually a good thing. The principal of our school is a global authority in the field of genetics and mutant changes. If you have any questions, or if there is an unknown change in your body, you can go to him. In normal times, you can tell the teachers if you have any requirements, don't be afraid. Thank you, teacher. Storm's comforting words seemed to have played a role, and the worry on Chen Tian's face slowly disappeared. At this moment, Chen Tian's voice changed. Teacher, can I apply to live alone? Recently, I feel that my strength is getting stronger and stronger. I'm afraid that if I don't control my strength one day, it will be bad to hurt a few classmates who live with me. Chen Tian explained. Xavier School is a comprehensive school that integrates primary school, junior high school, teaching and accommodation. Except for teachers and a small number of students, most of the dormitories are shared by several peers. For example, Chen Tian lives in a dormitory with 3 junior high school students in their teens, which makes him a little unaccustomed to having an adult consciousness. plus some personal secrets, so wanted to change to a single room. Facing Chen Tian's question, Orlo pondered slightly. Your concern is not unreasonable. If the power runs rampant, it is indeed dangerous to other people. I'll ask the professor about this, and then I'll answer you. Without a clear refusal, it means almost agreeing, so Chen Tian showed a grateful smile on his face. Trouble, teacher. No, it's just a small matter. But West, the original intention of the professor to let everyone live together is to let you know more about each other and not feel lonely. So even if you change dormitories and live alone, remember to communicate more with everyone. Well, thank you, teacher, for reminding me. During the conversation between the two, on the grass not far away, some of those playing students disappeared in a flash and appeared a few meters away, and some ran across the water. In addition, some people suddenly became like snakes in their lower bodies, growing tails and slid past quickly. Some of them also had a red halo around them, causing the surrounding classmates to startle roar. This scene, in the eyes of ordinary people, is completely a dance of demons. It is no wonder that ordinary people are feared, and then repelled from them. After telling Chen Tian, Storm was called away by a teacher, saying that he was looking for her for something. Soon, Chen Tian received the notice to change the dormitory, and then 2 female nurses appeared, helped him pack his things, and came to a single dormitory. When the nurse left, Chen Tian looked at the small room with the bed, desk, bookshelf, and wardrobe in front of him, with a satisfied smile on his face. This is the treatment after showing some potential. If he was just the one who entered the school, the registered ability was a mutant with ordinary energy control, and it was impossible to live in a single dormitory. After arranging his things, Chen Tian came to the window. Looking at the figures on the playground outside, showing various abilities like magic, Chen Tian pondered, thinking about the future. While X-Men doesn't have Marvel fire, he does have some knowledge of mutant. For example, among the current mutants, the strongest are the pacifist leader Professor X, the rebel leader Magneto, followed by Cyclops, Storm and others. As for Phoenix Force Chin Gray, it has been dead a few years ago. According to Chen Tian's observations in the past few days, the information collected shows that the current world time is 2006, which is in the old timeline of X-Men. At this time, several years have passed since the second battle of X-Men, and the third battle is about to break out. During this time period, the existence of mutant has long been known to the world and rejected by ordinary people. Many countries and forces are secretly studying mutant. However, because of fear of the mutant brotherhood led by Magneto, and some mutant rebel groups, these studies are carried out in secret. But Chen Tian knew that the United States' secret research on Sentry had entered the late stage. If nothing else, in 2013, 7 years later, the mutant extermination plan will be launched. In just 1 year, most of the mutants in the world will be killed by Sentry. A handful of powerful mutants linger, hiding until 2023, then relying on Shadowcat Katie's ability to teleport Wolverine consciousness back to 1973. In the end, he successfully prevented the shape-shifting female assassination incident that year, allowing the United States to cancel the Sentry plan and reverse the future. Thinking of this, Chen Tian thought thoughtfully, that is to say, do I still have 7 years of development time? Although he has integrated the Krypton Superman template, he still has the X gene, so he still belongs to mutant. At least in the eyes of others. Therefore, in the innate, Chen Tian's position is opposed to those in power in various countries. Chen Tian knew this very well, so he had already put Sentry, the robot that killed mutant, in his heart. In 7 years, Chen Tian was confident enough to reach the peak of Superman in the Bronze Age. Don't say anything about Sentry, even the Hulk is just a punch. Yes, Hulk. In terms of setting, X-Men and Marvel belong to the same universe, which means that this world is not only a powerful mutant such as Phoenix Force and Magneto. There are also Iron Man, Hulk, Captain, Thor and others exist. Even Thanos squatting in a corner of the universe, preparing to plan his family. Thinking of this, the lightness that had just been born in Chen Tian's heart suddenly disappeared, and he rubbed his eyebrows with a headache. Why is this world so chaotic? Everyone has it. If this is just an ordinary world, with the power of his Superman, it is not about the wind and the rain, and it is above hundreds of millions of people. At that time, no one dares to have any opinion on marrying hundreds of beautiful women as wives. But it is a pity that this is a coexistence of gods and demons, and all kinds of aliens have entered. The Marvel world where mutant, superhero, and super ability all have. Forget it, it's useless to think about it now, let's talk about everything when the strength is strong. Saying that, Chen Tian shook his head, turned around and went out to eat. There are not many students in Xavier School, there are only more than 30 high schools, middle schools and elementary schools combined. In addition, plus the ordinary mutant teachers hired by Professor X, X-Men, school logistics staff, etc., there are only a few dozen people in total. This is similar to what is shown in the movie. Therefore, every meal time, you can see those X-Men figures in the dining hall. Such as the famous Iceman Poppy, Cyclops Scott. In addition, there is the little naughty Anna who runs through the War Police trilogy, and Chen Tian has also seen it a few times. However, because movies are movies and the real world is the real world, there are some differences between these people and movies in terms of appearance. For example, little naughty Anna, she is very beautiful, and the white hair on her forehead makes her look strange and charming. Thank you, a large fruit pizza, a whole meat burger, and a Coke. At the cafeteria window, when it was Chen Tian's turn, he politely asked the cafeteria and inside. Students at Mutant School are free to board and lodging, which makes people feel that Professor X is rich. Holding the food, Chen Tian looked at it, and his eyes fell on the corner of the cafeteria. There, a black-haired girl in her teens was burying her head, eating lunch alone. Although this is Mutant Academy, everyone is a mutant who has been rejected by the outside world, and should join the group to keep warm. But where there are people, there are rivers and lakes, and there are small circles, and this is no exception. For example, the black-haired girl, under Chen Tian's observation for a few days, was a person who was rejected by the surrounding classmates. Definitely, those classmates won't bully her, after all, the professor and those teachers won't allow it. But they can not talk to her, not play with her, not walk with her, and naturally she is isolated and a little out of place. As for the reason, Chen Tian is not very clear, only know that her name is Clarice, she is 13 years old, and she came to school 2 days earlier than him. Clarice, Chen Tian was thoughtful in his eyes. If he remembers correctly, this girl also has a nickname called Blink. Ability is to open the entrance of space to transfer people and items, which is somewhat similar to Shadowcat's ability. However, Shadowcat's ability is to penetrate matter, and she is teleportation, and she has been entangled with Sentinel for a long time in the reversal of the future in 2023. Definitely, and was finally killed by Sentinel who found the flaw with a shot through the chest. What aroused Chen Tian's interest was not her ability, but that he remembered that Clarice was beautiful when she grew up, and conformed to his Asian aesthetic. West, there are seats here, do you want to be together? Just as Chen Tian was walking towards the girl, not far away, Katie, who was sitting with 2 female friends, beckoned to him with great enthusiasm. Chen Tian smiled politely. Thank you, but I have already found a place, so I won't come to disturb you. Okay, Katie nodded without thinking. Carrying the food, Chen Tian came all the way to the girl and said politely, "Hello, can I sit here?" "Ah, yes, yes." The girl raised her head, a little nervous. At the same time, when she raised her head, she revealed a slap in the face of file size, the shape of a melon seed, with delicate facial features and the unique softness of an oriental person. The eyes have turned light green because of the mutation, and there are purple marks similar to birthmarks between her eyebrows, giving people a strange beauty. In addition, some of the hair strands on her forehead were purple, which should be caused by the mutation. Beautiful indeed, Chen Tian exclaimed in his heart. However, the girl at the moment is still young. I don't know if she will be disabled when she grows up. After all, some people are cute and handsome when they are young, but they will be disabled when they grow up. The representative of this is the protagonist of Harry Potter. In the wild thoughts in his head, Chen Tian, who sat down, took the initiative. "Hello, my name is West Chen." Looking at Chen Tian, who introduced herself, because of the same Asian characteristics, the girl instinctively felt a touch of affection, hesitated for a while, and whispered, "Hello, my name is Clarice, Clarice Ferguson." It seems that the girl's character is somewhat introverted and timid, which is very different from the heroic beauty who has experienced many life and death battles more than 10 years later. However, this time Chen Tian just planned to get to know him briefly. So after introducing myself, I smiled and nodded to her, picked up the pizza and ate it. Looking at the black-haired boy who was eating with relish, the girl didn't say anything, she lowered her head and ate her lunch silently. When she had almost eaten, when she looked up, she found that the black-haired boy opposite had finished eating, and was looking at her with her elbow on the table, holding her chin. Immediately, the girl was a little nervous again. She wiped her mouth subconsciously, but found that there was nothing, so she couldn't help whispering in doubt. What's wrong? Chen Tian smiled slightly. It's nothing, I just suddenly found out that you were so beautiful, you were perfect like a little princess. Immediately, Clarice's face turned red and she was a little nervous. She lowered her head in embarrassment, and whispered in a mosquito-like voice, really? Chen Tian nodded affirmatively. Different from the reserved and reserved East, the Western ethos is open and direct. Say whatever you want, never hide your feelings. For example, on the street, if you see a beautiful woman, you can go directly to praise her and ask for her phone number. As long as the other party doesn't hate you, if you are lucky, maybe you can have a wonderful night, and then everyone will go their separate ways the next day. Definitely, the premise is not to be discovered by the boyfriend or husband of the other party. This may sound very free and open, but it is actually very confusing, so most Western women have had many men in their lives, and she does not know the exact number. In the same way, men are similar, and they don't have the sense of responsibility that Orientals have when they are together. But Chen Tian just praised her briefly, and then made a move. Roar got up. He was going to go to the library to check some materials in the afternoon. Although he roughly knows the current time, the world, and some basic information. But as a real world, this place is not movies and comics, so Chen Tian needs to inquire more information and information. For example, which countries are hostile to mutant, where mutant is active, where superhero appears, and the current level of technology. In addition, he also wants to find some books about genetic evolution. After all, he also has the X gene ability. Only by knowing mutant can you know yourself better. Mutation is the beginning of evolution. It allowed us to evolve from single cells to masters of the earth. And this process is very long, it takes tens of thousands of years, or even tens of thousands of years. During the evolution of life, a mutation cycle occurs every hundreds of thousands of years, making the species stronger and higher level. The masculinity of the afternoon passed through the glass and spilled into the library, giving people a drowsy feeling of laziness. Chen Tian was sitting by the window. In the sunlight, all the cells in his body were absorbing the energy of the sunlight, evolving and becoming stronger all the time. That's where Superman's perversion comes in. At the moment in Chen Tian's hands, holding a copy of Mutant's Genetic Theory, he was reading it with relish. I don't know if it's because of evolution, but his thinking and understanding ability have been improved to a certain extent, and this kind of deep book can barely be read. After reading the thick basic theory of genes, Chen Tian already had some basic understanding of the X gene and the evolving Kryptonian cells in his body. Putting down the book, Chen Tian's eyes narrowed slightly, and his eyes were thoughtful. He felt that mutant, like Superman, had strength from genes. However, unlike Superman's unrestricted evolution of genetic cells in the body under sunlight, the X gene in mutant has an obvious upper limit. For example, the strongest Magneto in mutant, Professor X, Storm, Iceman, etc., are only level planet creatures in the comics. And the performance in the movie is not to mention, it can't even affect a large-scale war. So the setting of the comics can't be taken seriously, they are definitely not that strong. Otherwise, the current global mutants will not live in dire straits, but human beings will be enslaved by mutants. As for Phoenix, although defined as the strongest Omega, she is not a mutant at all. Since her ability is derived from Phoenix Force, not mutant force, her mutant ability is psychokinesis. And Phoenix blows so hard every time he plays, but he can't control himself at all, except for causing damage and negative effects, there is no point left. Therefore, it is not one's own power, uncontrollable power, no matter how strong it is. From Chen Tian's quotations. Thinking of this, Chen Tian felt a little regretful. Because although he could feel it, the cells in his whole body changed and became stronger under the sunlight. But this perception is just a vague general sense of direction. At the moment, he was still unable to clearly perceive the changes in a single cell. Not to mention the chromosomes inside cells, the DNA and gene sequences inside chromosomes. If one day, he can clearly perceive the cells of the whole body, and the process of genetic changes in the depths of the cells, then he may be able to unlock the mysteries of life. After all, as long as the sun is irradiated, it can evolve infinitely, and even Superman, who is stronger than God, is too perverted. The thoughts in his mind scattered, Chen Tian looked up at the opposite side of the table. There, a girl with a black skirt and long black hair wearing earplugs sat quietly opposite, looking down at a fairy tale book. Clarice came early. Chen Tian noticed her when she sat down, but he was invading the book at the time, so he just nodded and made a move roar. It seemed that this girl was very lonely at mutant school, otherwise it would not have been a simple acquaintance at noon, and she would have taken the initiative to sit opposite him in the afternoon. However, he vaguely remembered that in the comics, Blink's adoptive father was Sabretooth under Magneto. Although she will fight with X-Men in the future, but from the current point of time, she should still be attending elementary school controlled by Magneto. Sure enough, the real world and movie comics are completely different. Thinking of this, Chen Tian rubbed his eyebrows with a headache, because this represented a lot of future information he knew, and there would be some discrepancies with reality. At this time, noticing the movement of rubbing his eyebrows, the girl opposite raised her head and asked in a low voice, "West, are you feeling unwell?" That cautious appearance seems to be afraid that Chen Tian will refuse to care, which makes people feel a little distressed. "Ah, no, I just thought of a headache." Chen Tian, who didn't expect her to care, gave a meal, and then a faint smile appeared on his face. At this time, Chen Tian's voice changed, and he said curiously, "By the way, Clarice, I haven't introduced myself yet. I'm from Bury, Mexico, how about you?" Clarice paused and whispered, I'm from the United States of Arizona. Horizon Island, it seems to be next to Mexico, it should be a little messy, right? Chen Tian thought about it and found the location of this continent on the map in his mind. The girl pursed her lips, nodded and said, "Yes, it's messy there, and the local people are not very friendly to people other than white people and the poor." From the little girl's calm tone, Chen Tian felt that she didn't like that place at all. "Clarice, how did you get here?" Chen Tian's question seemed to touch the girl's heart, and there was a trace of sadness on her face. Just when Chen Tian felt that his question was a bit abrupt, and wanted to comfort her and didn't want to say it, the girl whispered sadly. "There were a lot of bad people in the house that day, they killed the adoptive father, and then." In Clarice's account, she originally lived with her adoptive father on the outskirts of the city and lived a frugal life, but suddenly a group of people rushed into her house half a month ago. In the fierce battle, her adoptive father was killed, and she should also react violently to awakening mutant power and suddenly teleport to escape. After hiding in the city for 2 days, she was found by X-Men and brought to Xavier School when she was too hungry. After listening to her narration, Chen Tian hurriedly comforted her and at the same time dispelled a trace of speculation in his heart. "It seems that I think too much and want to be an undercover agent under Professor X's nose, which is impossible. The landscaping of Xavier School is well done, like a park surrounded by gardens, lawns and trees can be seen everywhere, and it is very quiet. The next day is Sunday, which is also a day off." On the edge of the lawn downstairs in the dormitory, Chen Tian was leaning on a chair, with Erlang's feet crossed, his hands folded behind his head, and basking in the sun comfortably. Under the sunlight, Chen Tian felt warm all over his body, and the reminder sound of Physique +3 and Strength +5 kept ringing in his mind. Just 1 day later, Chen Tian's strength has skyrocketed again, his physique has reached more than 300 points, and his strength is close to 5 tons. The speed of this improvement is amazing. It seems that the stronger the strength, the faster the improvement speed. In addition, the increase in physique also made other changes in Chen Tian's body obvious. For example, vision. At the moment, he could clearly see a mosquito flying among the grass under the roots of a tree more than 10 meters away, and the vibration of its wings brought an afterimage. Clearly, this is a symptom of dynamic vision. In addition to physique, the growth of spiritual attributes also made Chen Tian's spirit very strong, and his thinking became faster and faster. Just weird equals no awakening spirit ability. Under normal circumstances, more than 10 times the spiritual attributes of ordinary people, not to mention the spiritual perception of awakening, should awakening be the super ability of psychokinesis. But at present, Chen Tian has no other features except that his thinking runs faster and he can blur the changes in his perception. Just when Chen Tian felt the change in his body and was familiar with the power of growth in his body, Clarice's figure appeared at the corner of the path in the distance. Today's girl is wearing a white t-shirt and slim jeans, so that she is only 1.5 meters tall, and she looks a little slender and clear. Coupled with the delicate and beautiful face, the bewitching eyes and the purple lines, there is a faint glamorous look on her body as she walks in the sunlight. In front of Chen Tian, the black-haired girl called out carefully, "West." Chen Tian retracted his gaze, with a smile on his face. "Good morning, Clarice." And just when he looked up, because he didn't converge his eyesight, Chen Tian's drooping line of sight was looking up from the bottom, white flat shoes, straight legs, and seems to be white. Cough cough. Chen Tian quickly converged his eyesight and looked up at the girl with the same expression on his face, as if nothing had happened. The girl who didn't know these pointed to Chen Tian's side and whispered, "West, can I sit here?" "Definitely, please take a seat." "Thanks." After the girl sat down, she saw Chen Tian closed her eyes, as if she was enjoying the sun, and did not disturb him, but took out her headphones and put it on, and quietly read the book. The cover of the book reads, "Andersen's Fairy Tales," and it seems that she likes reading fairy tales. On the chairs by the lawn, there are girls sitting with bent legs, listening to songs and reading books, and boys leaning lazily on the chairs and basking in the sun. From a distance, the picture looks very warm. However, this warm scene was soon broken. Not long after Clarice sat down, 4 boys came over not far away. The boy at the head has short brown hair and a reckless look, so he can't be easily offended at first sight. And the goal is clear, obviously coming from Chen Tian and them. When she saw those boys, Clarice's face suddenly showed disgust, fear, and jealousy. Among the 4, the boy at the head said loudly from a distance, "Hi. Clarice, we just went to the dormitory and wanted to play with you, but unfortunately you're not here. It turned out to be here." With that said, Bernard looked at Chen Tian. "Bernard, what are you looking for from me?" The girl seemed to be a little afraid of them, and subconsciously shrank towards Chen Tian. Although the 4 mutants were all smiles, from them, Chen Tian with strong mental power felt a touch of hostility and couldn't help but open his eyes. At the same time, simple information about the 4 people came to his mind. Bernard, junior high school student, 15 years old, mutant ability is short-distance teleportation, strong and domineering, and is the center of a small circle in the class. Johnny, also a medium level, 14 years old, mutant ability is a bear, the power is like a burst bear, and the whole body will grow thick hair when it bursts. Claude. Bernard didn't answer Clarice's words, but looked at Chen Tian who was leaning back on the chair and looked at them with a cold expression, with a hint of provocation in his eyes. "West, I know you." "Really, then?" Chen Tian nodded casually. As an adult, Chen Tian didn't really want to pay attention to these junior high school students. But it is obvious that these guys are not good people, so the tone is not very polite. Chen Tian's attitude made the 4 Bernards feel a little uncomfortable, and Johnny, who looked like a bear behind him, said, "West, don't you know that Clarice is Bernard's girlfriend?" Suddenly the girl beside Chen Tian said quickly, "No, I obviously didn't agree that day." Looking at the girl who reacted a bit fiercely, Bernard said with sincerity, "Clarice, I really like you, promise to be my girlfriend." The girl shook her head with a firm attitude, "But I don't like you." Looking at this scene, Chen Tian vaguely guessed the reason why Clarice was rejected. At the same time, they also knew the source of hostility in Bernard and the others. It's just a little kid in junior high school, forcing a 13-year-old girl to fall in love. Is the West so open? Or that he was outdated? Do you want to start dating from a young age? Junior high school does not work hard, the boss is sad. But here I have to say, this kid's eyes are a bit poisonous. Actually notice the potential stock of Clarice. Knowing that when she grows up, she will become a beautiful, hot and beauty. To be rejected again in front of so many people, Bernard felt a little lost. But people didn't agree to be his girlfriend, so he couldn't beat her, so he looked at Chen Tian, who was a little bit more handsome than him. When he thought about it, as a mutant who was rejected by the outside world, the timid Clarice should be afraid of loneliness, so he secretly approached Roar with his classmates. It means that he likes Clarice a lot and is trying to pursue it now. Everyone give him a face, don't come to interfere with him. And the mutant students in the class were obviously a little bit afraid of Bernard's small circle of 4, so no one really paid attention to her these few days. After more than a week, Bernard felt that it was almost there, and he was going to find an opportunity to make Clarice ostensibly agree to be his girlfriend. But who knows, a new student appeared halfway through. Yesterday, I actually took the initiative to talk to Clarice, and then the 2 hooked up like this. I heard that the 2 spent an afternoon in the library yesterday. They were seen sitting together on the edge of the lawn on a date again this morning. Can Bernard endure this? This is the girl he first saw. Thinking of this, Bernard looked at Chen Tian badly. Student West, I like Claudius very much, I hope you can give her to me. Suddenly Chen Tian was a little stunned. What kind of confidence is this? What kind of self-righteous person can say such a thing? Do you think the whole world revolves around you? Also, I like it very much, hope you can give her to me. You said that if you like me, I have to give it to you. You have a big face. Or did you eat the face fruit? Also, when did I say I liked her? Simply inexplicable. What I like is the big beauty 10 years from now, not the little girl who looks like a match now. I'm not a pervert. And don't you think it's disrespectful for you to decide her belonging like an object in front of a girl, regardless of her opinions and attitudes? At this moment, a series of complaints appeared in Chen Tian's heart. He didn't know whether to say that this junior high school student was arrogant or naive. Could it be that this is the way of thinking of Westerners? I think it is, don't you think? However, although Chen Tian was shocked in his heart, he did not show it on his face, but his tone was a little cold. Student Bernard, you seem to have made a few mistakes. First, classmate Clarice is not an object. Who she likes to be friends with is her right. You are not qualified to make decisions for her. Second, we are just classmates, what qualifications do you have to order me? Who do you think you are? And you should be thankful that Clarice and I are just friends. If I'm really in a relationship with her, with your current attitude, even if I beat you up, the teacher and the others won't say anything. Having said that, Chen Tian stood up and stood in front of the girl. With a height of 1.75 meters, the tall and straight figure completely covered the girl, giving people a sense of security. Chen Tian's words made the girl who was afraid a little stunned for a moment, and there was a faint feeling in her heart, which was the feeling of being respected. This kind of feeling is hard to feel for a girl who has lived in a slum with her adoptive father since she was a child, and is often despised by the people around her and hates eyes. Growing up in this environment, she also developed a sensitive personality of being timid, inferior, and afraid to cause trouble. Bernard and the others just saw this, so they dared to bully her. After bullying her, they didn't dare to go to the teacher after suffering cold violence. Looking at Chen Tian, who stood up half a head taller than him, Bernard felt inexplicably weak under his gaze, and subconsciously took a half step back. But then, Bernard was angry at his half step back. He, Bernard, is a man of high interest in the junior high school. Awakening has short-distance teleportation and dual abilities with physical strengthening. He is a genius praised by Cyclops and Iceman in X-Men. Even Professor X praised him. When was it a freshman's turn to teach him a lesson? And still in front of 3 followers. If you don't find the place today, how will you be in the class in the future? Suddenly, a ruthless expression appeared on Bernard's face. West, don't forget, this is different from the outside, this is the mutant school. For us mutants, whoever has the bigger fist has the right to speak. I heard that your variant ability is an energy explosion, and it also comes with a certain physical strengthening, but I don't know if you dare to try it with me. Chen Tian raised his brows and showed a faint smile on his face. Why, classmate Bernard wants to fight with me. Then Chen Tian was a little careless. Don't say I bullied you. Let's just say, is it the 4 of you who singled out one of me, or is it me who beat the 4 of you together? Said, the blood in Chen Tian's body began to boil, and a powerful force poured out from the muscles, ready to start at any time. If Bernard and the others were just ordinary junior high school students, Chen Tian would not have the same knowledge as them. But the opponent is mutant, who has a powerful transcendent ability. In Chen Tian's eyes, it is a good test target. You can try his current strength. Under the constant sun these days, his strength has been getting stronger. The feeling of strength all over his body made Chen Tian have the urge to hold a hammer and want to find a few nails and hammer it twice. Immediately, the smell of gunpowder on both sides thickened, and Clarice, who was frightened, quickly stopped in the middle of the 2 sides, and said with a pale face, "No, you can't fight." In her opinion, Bernard and the others have 4, and they have been in school for a long time, and they are proficient in mutant ability. And Chen Tian is not only a freshman, but also has only one person. Once he starts, he will definitely suffer. Come together, do you look down on me, Bernard? Bernard sneered. Clarice, get out of the way, this is a duel between men, but don't worry, it's only me and him one-on-one. Although Clarice was afraid, she still mustered up her courage and shook her head. I won't let you, Bernard, I have already rejected you twice. If you don't leave, I will tell the teacher that you are bullying me. Clearly, Clarice didn't believe Bernard at all. Bernard's chest rose and fell, a little irritable and unwilling. In the end, Bernard gave Chen Tian a hard look. Very good, West, let go of you today, don't give me a chance to teach you a lesson. Obviously, the school teacher still had a strong deterrent to these junior high school students. After leaving a harsh word, the four Bernards left angrily. Pity. Seeing the four Bernards who left behind the harsh words, Chen Tian couldn't help shaking his head. A child is a child, and was actually frightened by a call to the teacher. At the same time, on the 5th floor of the teaching building not far away, Storm Orlo and Cyclops Scott stood behind the floor-to-ceiling windows and saw the scene just now. And because of Mutant's strong physique, he also heard their conversation. Orlo frowned slightly. Bernard's ability has not improved in the past 2 years, but his character has been more deeply affected by Mutant's power. Scott was silent for a moment, but didn't speak. After saying this, Orlo turned to look at Scott again. Also, he secretly joined the classmates in the class to isolate Clarice. You don't care. Scott's voice was a little low. I only knew about this. I originally planned to warn Bernard in class tomorrow. But for now, it doesn't seem necessary. Seeing Scott's sullen expression, Storm opened his mouth. In the end, he seemed to think of something, and he sighed in his heart. He didn't say anything about it, but changed the subject and said, by the way, what do you think of West's performance just now? Scott pondered slightly. It's good to have the courage to stand up to protect your companions, and not lack the will to fight. Orlo had a smile on his face. I think so too. For this conflict, Chen Tian didn't take it to heart. In his eyes, it was just a trivial matter for a few children to be jealous. But after this incident, Clarice seems to be a little closer to him. For example, when Chen Tian sat down again, the girl took off an earphone and carefully handed it to him. West, do you want to listen together? Facing the pair of expectant green eyes, Chen Tian paused slightly, then smiled and took over the earphones. When Chen Tian put the earphones in his ears, a piece of light music he had never heard before suddenly came. The rhythm was soothing and ethereal, giving people the illusion of standing in front of the valley after the rain. The girl's beautiful eyes flickered. West, does it sound good? Chen Tian nodded in appreciation. Yes, Clarice, what is this song called? This piece of music is called The Girl from a Distance, and the creator is the famous pianist of Yingguo, Stinkily. No one bothered. Chen Tian basked in the sun lazily until noon, and then went to the cafeteria for lunch with Clarice. After having lunch and resting for a while, Chen Tian went to the library again. Clarice seemed to have something to do in the afternoon and did not follow. In the library, Chen Tian followed the catalog guide, picked up a few genetics and biology books on the shelf, and found a place where he could bask in the sun. He found that the biology and genetics of this world are very interesting. If some of these theories can be realized, maybe people can become gods in one step. No, it should be said that there have been some successful cases. Like Mutant, the current strongest Professor X and Magneto, if they appeared in ancient times, could be called gods with their power. In addition to this, there are the infinitely powerful Hulk and the Fantastic Four with special abilities, who were also worshipped as gods in ancient times. It's just that Mutant is a test item of the gods who did not know how many thousands of years ago, while the Hulk and the Fantastic Four are accidental products of modern science. So Chen Tian is thinking, if he can control the evolution direction of krypton cells and make the conversion of sunlight energy absorption faster, will it speed up the improvement of strength? Also, the Bronze Age Superman has a weakness for low magic defense. Although this low magic defense refers to those powerful magic, ordinary magic cannot break the defense at all, but it is indeed a weakness. So if you can activate or integrate some X-gene abilities, such as Absolute Barrier, Mind Shield, Energy Absorption and other abilities, you can make up for the weakness. However, genetics is a bit esoteric and involves too much scope. It is not so simple to achieve short-term gains. After watching it for 3 hours, Chen Tian put down the book with some headache and rubbed his eyebrows. In the past, he was just a college student who graduated with a science degree, and he also majored in computer software. At the moment, it was not easy to enter the field of biology. I didn't expect that, West, you would be interested in biology. In the gentle voice, an old man in a wheelchair came across to Chen Tian with a smile. His eyes were deep and full of wisdom. Professor. Chen Tian looked at the old man in surprise. Chen Tian would not be unfamiliar with this extremely clever, top, character that ran through the front and back of X-Men. On the day of admission, he met Professor X. In addition, he also faintly felt a terrifying spiritual force from Professor X, the majesty like an ocean, which made Chen Tian's heart shudder. Then my head is empty and I don't think about anything. This ability is telepathy, will control. Can easily manipulate, delete, browse and create other people's memories, control others. At this moment, Professor X smiled slightly and said with gentle eyes, West, you don't need to be on guard against me. Although my ability is special, under normal circumstances, I won't use it casually on people. After all, everyone has their own privacy, unless the other party is our enemy. Chen Tian was a little embarrassed and said, Well, Professor, you misunderstood, I respect you very much, how can I be on guard? Although this is a fact, he is indeed a little afraid of Professor X's ability, but Chen Tian will not admit it foolishly. And although Professor X's telepathy is very powerful, Chen Tian felt that if he really wanted to browse his memories, he would definitely be blocked. After all, there is a system in him. Professor X did not dwell too much on this topic, and said mildly, As the principal of the school, my duty is to solve students' doubts and teach knowledge. It's a pity, however, that most of the students in the school are focused on researching their own variant abilities, but not many of them read books seriously. Like you, West, there are fewer people reading quietly in the rest time. It seems that you are interested in biology and genetics. It just so happens that my research direction is also genetic mutation. If you have any questions, you can contact me at any time. Definitely, even if it's not a study problem, you can come to me. Although he was afraid of Professor X's ability, his achievements in the biological field were indeed remarkable, and Chen Tian really wanted to be involved in the biological and genetic fields. So after a slight pause, he opened his mouth to ask him for advice. These questions of Chen Tian are all the doubts that have arisen from reading books in the past 2 days, and belong to some basics of genetics, but the professor still answers patiently. After a question and answer, Chen Tian had a clearer understanding of genetics. After Chen Tian finished asking the question he thought of temporarily, Professor X looked at him with a smile, and said gently, West, I still see some confusion in your eyes, is there any problem? Professor, do you know about Bernard and Clarice? Chen Tian asked about what happened in the morning. As the headmaster of Mutant School, this powerful mind perceiver can say that the entire school is under his watch. Chen Tian doesn't think there is anything that can fill him up. Knowledge. Facing Chen Tian's question, Professor X nodded calmly. Chen Tian was taken aback by his calmness, and then before he could speak, the professor continued to speak. You were wondering, why didn't I stop it? Chen Tian nodded. The professor turned his head to look out the window, and said in a gentle voice, Do you know, West, the difference between mutant and ordinary people is not only the body mutation, but also the mind. I don't know if it is because of the X gene. I found that most of the mutants have some psychological problems after awakening mutation. Some people become extremely egotistical, arrogant, destructive, driven by the desire for power. Some people have become more timid, afraid of the outside world, afraid of their ability, hated their mutant status, and even self-harm. Clarice, for example, has become too timid. And Bernard, he was also affected by power, his mental flaws enlarged, and his character became more and more arrogant and irritable, but he didn't know it. As the principal of Mutant School, my responsibility is to guide students, familiarize themselves with their abilities, and overcome their psychological deficiencies. Be a user of power, not driven by power. This time, I originally wanted to borrow Bernard's hand to arouse Clarice's resistance, so that she could learn to fight, not to endure and retreat as soon as she encountered something. For mutant, enduring, giving in is not going to solve the problem. Fight. Teaching your philosophy, isn't it that mutants should coexist peacefully with ordinary people? Chen Tian was a little puzzled. Professor X smiled slightly. Yes, my philosophy is indeed to advocate peaceful coexistence, so I established X-Men to arrest those mutants who endanger society. But there is a premise of this peaceful coexistence, that is, those ordinary people do not include those who are hostile to mutant. Chen Tian was shocked by Professor X's words. In the past, his understanding of Professor X came from movies and comics. It just feels like he's a mighty mutant with a bit of a virgin. But unexpectedly, it turned out that he had always misunderstood this concept. No wonder he didn't kill Magneto even if he had beaten him before, and he rarely killed other mutants who were in trouble, because he needed a knife. A knife that forces humanity to live in peace with most of the mutants who want peace. It's just that sometimes people are out of control, and professors are not gods. Otherwise, there will be no subsequent death of himself, and the birth of Sentry, who will destroy mutant. Thinking of this, Chen Tian sighed slightly in his heart. At this time, Professor X continued, "From the current effect, I have achieved half of my goal this time. Because of you, Clarice has a little courage to resist. But it's a pity that Bernard was too deeply affected by power, and his character became more and more irritable. His desire was strong, and he was full of aggression. Actually, he has great potential. The ability to teleport at will is very strong. If used well, it will not be less effective than Nightcrawler, and it will help teammates a lot. I hope that West, you will not be hostile to him in the future, he will not become your enemy. Next, I will take action and guide him to learn to live peacefully with his classmates." "Professor, how are you going to guide him?" Chen Tian was a little curious. Professor X didn't answer, just smiled. The next day, when Chen Tian went to the classroom, he met Bernard and several of his buddies in the corridor outside. After seeing Chen Tian, Bernard took the initiative to call Roar and said enthusiastically, "West, good morning, had a good time with Clarice yesterday." As he spoke, Bernard winked at him. There was no smell of gunpowder from yesterday, and there was no hostility and aggression in his eyes. Including Johnny and the three behind him, they seemed to have forgotten yesterday's conflict. It looks like everyone is a good classmate and a good partner. Facing the enthusiastic four people, Chen Tian's face remained calm, and he also nodded to them and made a move Roar. But when following them into the classroom, Chen Tian felt a chill in his heart. Obviously, this is what Professor X said, modifying the memory of the four people without their knowledge, affecting their personalities. But I didn't notice it at all. As expected of an Omega-level telepathy, his power is indeed terrifying. Chen Tian was even more apprehensive about Professor X's methods, and at the same time he understood why the other party suddenly appeared yesterday. Obviously the purpose was to appease him. Professor X also knows how terrible his own ability is, so he rarely uses it. In order not to let Chen Tian be frightened by Bernard's sudden change, he appeared yesterday to tell him the cause and effect and prepare him mentally. At the same time, it also explains from the side that Professor X attaches great importance to Chen Tian, or to the potential mutant. Sure enough, the treatment of geniuses and ordinary people is completely different. But Professor, although your starting point is good intentions, people's hearts are unpredictable. Thinking of this, Chen Tian sighed slightly. When those people in the future know that you have modified their memories, what they will get will not be gratitude, but hatred and suspicion. Because no one likes being pushed around. For example, Jean Grey, who is about to return from Blacken. And the Xavier Academy, which is about to be disbanded in the future, is all related to Professor X's ability. System, has my memory been watched, influenced or modified? Chen Tian's voice sounded in his mind, and he was still a little worried. Facing Chen Tian's question, a cold neutral voice sounded in his mind. Please rest assured, the host, under the protection of the core rule of the system, no one can invade the host's mind. That's good. With mixed feelings, Chen Tian walked into the classroom. In this morning's class, he was interested in biology, and the teacher was an ordinary mutant teacher named Anna's. Due to the small number of students and the mutant status, students at Xavier School are divided into primary, middle and high schools. Students of similar age are in a large classroom, and the content and knowledge taught by the teacher during teaching are not highly professional, which is convenient for students to understand. As for homework, exams are almost nothing. After all, the purpose of the professor running this school is to give the persecuted mutant children a place to learn knowledge. As for whether I can become a scholar and contribute to the social sciences, I have never thought about it. Definitely, if you personally want to learn, you can ask those teachers specifically, or go to the library to find books to read, no one will stop you. In this atmosphere, the students at Xavier School have low learning pressure and live happily every day. Today was the same as before, when Chen Tian came to sit by the window, where he could bask in the sun. But at this time, Chen Tian smelled a faint fragrance, and a young girl walked past him and sat on the seat in front of him. It was Clarice. Chen Tian was a little surprised. He remembered the last row where the girl had been sitting. As if feeling his gaze, the girl in the front row turned back, her green eyes blinked, and there was a faint trace of nervousness. Chen Tian showed her a smile, and the girl who looked at him was close to him with a sudden heartbeat. No way, originally Chen Tian was very handsome. Coupled with the absorption of solar energy during this period of time, and continuous evolution, the whole person seems to have some characteristics of sunshine, and it looks clean and sunny. Such boys are completely killers to these girls in junior high school and high school. Looking at the thin figure in front of him, Chen Tian felt that this was not bad, at least the class would not be so boring. As an adult, Chen Tian didn't really want to come for this kind of high school course, but in order not to make himself look abnormal, he had to come again. For the next 2 classes, Chen Tian lay lazily on the table in a daze. When I was very bored, I looked at the girl's hair in front of me, it was very thick. At the same time, he noticed that Clarice listened carefully to the class and was always looking at the teacher on the podium. Unexpectedly, she is actually a good child who likes to study. So boring, Chen Tian yawned. Bored, Chen Tian's eyes fell on Clarice's hair. In other words, should I pull her hair and let her feel the joy of being a student? Anyway, it feels so childish. After thinking about it, Chen Tian dismissed the idea. He felt that if he learned the behavior of reaching out and pulling Clarice's hair in those videos, he might not get a coy look back. It was the weak and tearful eyes of the girl after being bullied. Time passed, and finally arrived at noon in the expectation of Chen Tian, and suddenly the classroom became noisy, and those junior high school students also held it all morning. Just when a college student got up and was about to go to the cafeteria to eat, Chen Tian also stood up and invited the beautiful girl in front of him. Clarice, do you want to go together? Okay, the black-haired girl whispered, and then followed Chen Tian like a well-behaved daughter-in-law. This appearance makes Chen Tian a little at a loss. What is this attitude? It's rare that my charm is so great, and she fell in love with me after just a few contacts. Bullshit. Anyway, Chen Tian doesn't believe it. This appearance should be because Clarice is too introverted and has no friends. Therefore, I have a sense of closeness to his peers who have come into contact with him and feel good. At this time, they walked out of the teaching building. The students in front had already run away, and there was no one around. Chen Tian, who felt a little embarrassed, asked for a topic. By the way, Clarice, I see that you listened very carefully in the math and physics class earlier. Do you like math and physics? I'm not. Chen Tian's words made the girl a little nervous and opened her mouth. In the end, the girl bowed her head and said with some inferiority, actually, I don't understand the teacher's class at all. I only read books for 2 years when I was a child, and then I didn't read it because I moved. I just pretended to be serious in the classroom because I was afraid that other students would know. In fact, I didn't understand any of those mathematical formulas. After finishing speaking, the girl stopped and bowed her head in inferiority. It seems that I feel that I am not qualified to walk with Chen Tian. Chen Tian, who had taken 2 steps, stopped and looked back at her strangely. Clarice, why don't you leave? The girl raised her head and opened her mouth. West, I'm so stupid, shouldn't you look down on me? Why do you look down on you? Chen Tian looked at her strangely. I talk to you and communicate with you because of Clarice, not because of your knowledge. And we are mutants. For us, learning knowledge is just to broaden our horizons, not to be small and ignorant. So why should I look down on you because of your poor academic performance? What a fool. In the sigh, Chen Tian reached out and touched her brain hole, and comforted, okay, you girl is too sensitive, thinking about so many things all day long. Be a human being, just be happy, who knows if you will suddenly burp tomorrow. Chen Tian's remarks moved the black-haired girl a little. She has always been worried, and has been hiding the things she cares about. In the eyes of the boy in front of her, it is not a problem at all, and she doesn't care. But when Clarice was so moved, a smug smile suddenly appeared on Chen Tian's face. How about it? My chicken soup is delicious. I was almost moved. After finishing speaking, Chen Tian patted the girl who was a little confused. Let's go to the cafeteria quickly, otherwise they will finish the selection of delicious food. Following behind Chen Tian, the black-haired girl said cautiously, West, what do you mean by fart? Hiccups or pigtails? The braid. What is it? Clarice was a little dazed. Chen Tian said lazily, it's Pakai. Po guy, what is it? In West, the teacher perceives that his X gene fluctuations are very active, and there are signs of further improvement in ability. And his mental state is stable, so the teacher's evaluation of his potential was changed to Alpha, which can be used as an X-Men reserve. Definitely, whether or not he can become an X-Men in the end depends on his own wishes. In the conference room, Scott, who was wearing special glasses, said in a low voice, "So I'm going to let him join in the actual combat class this afternoon." Hearing this, the Rakshasa girl Anna hesitated. Will it be too early? After all, he has only been in school for more than a week. Iceman also nodded slightly. Yes, I also feel a little early. In the case of the two objecting, Storm Orlo crossed his arms and said, "Since he passed the professor's assessment, I don't think it matters. All of the X-Men present here have experienced many battles, and some are also school teachers, so their opinions, Scott, also need to be taken seriously." However, the matter of training Chen Tian in advance has been approved by Professor X, so Scott said solemnly, "I understand everyone's concerns." However, the teacher said that he had a premonition of some unease recently, but he did not find the source after careful investigation, and another chaos may come. Therefore, it is necessary to speed up the cultivation of living forces, and maybe they will be able to play some roles at that time. Seeing that Scott said that it was Professor X's meaning, Anna and the others paused for a while, and then they no longer objected. In the afternoon, when Chen Tian was taken to the underground training room, there were already 6 senior students waiting inside. These senior students are the better part of the mutant school where ability is strong, strong-willed, and in control of ability use. Among them is Shadowcat Katie, and Chen Tian is the youngest among them. In front of the crowd is a big ring with Cyclops Scott, Storm Orlo and Iceman Poppy standing on it. When Chen Tian was standing, Scott said in a low voice, "As mutants, we must learn to master our own strength. And as long as it is a mutant, whether it is an energy type, a spiritual type, or a body variant, our physique is stronger than ordinary people. At this time, we need to learn some fighting skills, and at the same time practice more and accumulate combat experience, which is also one of the necessary conditions for joining X-Men. Today, I, Orlo, and Bobby will serve as sparring partners to help everyone develop and familiarize themselves with their abilities and use them more flexibly. It's also an opportunity for you to get to know your companions. Among the people present, some of them will join the X-Men in the future, and maybe they will be combat partners at that time. Okay, let's start now. Peter, come first." The one called Peter is a sturdy, resolute young man with the ability to steel his entire body, called Colossus. At this time, Colossus was already an X-Men, but not a teacher, but a senior mutant student. The arena is huge, with hundreds of square meters, and the entire underground training room is even more amazingly wide. It is hard to imagine how such a large space was created underground. Colossus came to the ring. Cyclops and Storm stepped aside, leaving Poppy Iceman in the middle. Iceman, who was only in his 20s, looked at Colossus and said with a smile, "Peter, we are old friends too, let's get started." Colossus said solemnly, "Okay." As he spoke, his body exuded a silver-black metallic luster, including his clothes, and turned into a steel composed entirely of special steel elements. Boom! Colossus, who turned into steel, stepped on it hard, and cracks appeared on the hard ground. Under the powerful anti-shock force, Colossus rumbled towards Iceman more than 10 meters away, like a charging tank, with amazing momentum. At this moment, Iceman Poppy reached out and pressed it on the ground, and a blue chill burst out in an instant, freezing the water molecules in the air. On the ground, the blue ice like a water pipe spread at a speed visible to the naked eye, turning into a blue ice wall dozens of centimeters thick, and it was crossed between the two of them. Facing the ice wall that suddenly appeared, Colossus slammed into it. Bang! Under the violent force, the ice wall burst instantly. But at this moment, 3 ice walls rose in succession behind him, and at the same time, a burst of ice appeared under Bobby's feet, and the whole person pulled away like skating. Bang bang bang! Before the rampant Colossus, 3 ice walls were shattered again. But at this time, Iceman, who had already retreated more than 20 meters away, waved his hand, and a hockey puck of file size appeared in front of him. Whoosh whoosh! With a piercing roar whistle, the ice balls burst out like cannonballs, tearing the air and appearing in front of Colossus, falling with astonishing power. Boom boom boom! These hockey pucks are very hard, and carry amazing cold air, bursting with amazing damage under the high-speed impact, and the banging Colossus keeps retreating. But only back. After turning into steel form, Colossus was amazing in both defense and strength. These ice balls like tank shells fell on him, leaving only white marks. With such a power display, Chen Tian looked surprised. Compared with the simplicity and rudeness in the movie, at the moment Colossus and Iceman show the ability control, the power impact of the collision of the two abilities. More shocking, especially Iceman Poppy. Just like a magician of the ice type, all kinds of ice type attacks are readily available in his hands. Ice hockey, ice chains, ice walls, etc. There is absolutely nothing in the movie that only knows how to spray cold air to freeze people, or create an ice wall to block the clumsy. And Colossus is similar, powerful and agile, and it is completely a steel tank with amazing defense. The ground smashed with the movement of the foot, and the strong force exploded with the wave of the arm to shatter the ice wall. Rampage, not caring about Iceman's attacks at all. Chapter 11. The battle between Iceman and Colossus. Chen Tian looked a little shocked. However, compared to Iceman with Omega level potential, Colossus is still a little worse, and the fighting method is too simple, straight to the point. So at the moment, although the scene was spectacular, he was suppressed by Iceman from the start. And when the two were fighting, Chen Tian was also thinking if it was him, how would he deal with Iceman? After comparing, Chen Tian narrowed his eyes slightly, thinking in his heart, from the performance point of view, my current strength is much worse than Colossus. In terms of defense, I can't compare to him. Now my physical strength is at best ignoring ordinary knives, small power pistols, and the like. However, my speed is much faster than him. His strength is too single, but his defense has increased, his strength has increased, but his speed and flexibility cannot keep up. While thinking about it, Chen Tian's thoughts moved, and he called out the attribute page. Host, Chen Tian. Race, human. Bloodline, Krypton Superman, Bronze Age. Constitution, 420. Spirit, 213. Strength, 490. Grip strength 6 tons. Agility, 412. X-Gene ability. Energy Rage level 1. Storage space, 1x1. In just 2 days, his physique has doubled to more than 400, which is equivalent to more than 40 times that of ordinary people, and his grip strength has increased to 6 tons. With a grip strength of 6 tons, when standing, a punch can burst out at least 12 tons of power. If you add a charge, the explosion with additional kinetic energy will be even more amazing. In addition, the agile data has also reached more than 40 times that of ordinary people. However, because he has not used his full strength, and there is no reference that can be used as a comparison, Chen Tian does not know how fast his current speed is relative to the 3 attributes of physique, strength, and agility. The growth of spiritual attributes is much slower, at the moment is only more than 20 times that of ordinary people. There is also X-Gene ability, Energy Rage, which Chen Tian has never used. The only impression is that in his predecessor's memory, during awakening at school, his whole body was full of violent power, and he randomly knocked the high school student who bullied him into the air. At this time, Shadowcat next to Chen Tian whispered, Peter's ability is very strong, even a high-powered cannonball can't hurt him when his whole body is tempered. And don't look at him being suppressed by Poppy now. In fact, ability has been suppressed, and some auxiliary functions have not been exerted. Chen Tian nodded. Suddenly, Scott on the edge of the ring made a gesture, and the 2 people on the stage stopped their hands and put away ability. Looking at Peter, who was fighting for 10 minutes, his face was not blushing and he was not breathing, Scott said in a low voice, compared to last month, Peter's steel ability has improved significantly in strength. Next, Troy, your opponent is Orlo. Mutant, named Troy, is a tall, thin boy with ability to plant and control plants. As soon as he took the stage, his feet spread out like rhizomes, and instantly 3 green vines like pythons grew and spread, rushing towards Storm in the distance. However, compared to the power-type Colossus, these vines are a bit weak. Storm just waved her arms, and the strong wind roared around her. The real gust of wind not only made her fly, but also blew the vines away. At this time, flowers suddenly bloomed on the vines that were blown away, and then exploded with a bang, spewing out a lot of pink pollen. Those pollen are paralyzed, and once absorbed, people will experience hallucinations and become powerless. But, unable to get close to Orlo, it was blown away by the strong wind. A few minutes later, the battle on the stage was over, and Troy, who was sweating profusely and physically exhausted, stepped down. Next, the remaining mutants came to the stage to fight against the three Cyclops. Chen Tian was dazzled by the variety of abilities. One mutant can blast air cannons, which is not weak, and the other mutant can turn arms and legs into weapons. There is also a mutant's ability to control a weapon with embodied energy, like a shooter, constantly shoot energy arrows, the power, okay. Finally, Shadowcat, her opponent is also Iceman Poppy, and the task is to touch him. In the face of hard ice walls, Shadowcat is like an illusory projection, penetrating directly, chasing Iceman is a maddening. Those pucks and other attacks were also ignored by her, which was completely different from Colossus' performance. But unfortunately, although she can penetrate and be immune to all attacks, her strength and speed are not as good as Colossus, and she can't catch up with Iceman who controls ice sliding. But the strange thing is that in this form, she can run through the ice wall while running on the ring, ignoring the attack. Why doesn't she fall under the ring? This made Chen Tian somewhat puzzled. When Shadowcat Katie went down, Scott looked at Chen Tian, who didn't play in the end, and said in a low voice, "Next is West, I'll be your sparring partner." Just with a slight hesitation, Chen Tian stepped onto the ring under the watchful eyes of many people. Looking at Chen Tian not far away, Scott adjusted his glasses and said in a low voice, "West, the teacher said that you are a rare mutant genius." Immediately, the faces of the people below showed surprise. They did not expect that Professor X's evaluation of Chen Tian was so high. Chen Tian was a little embarrassed and said, "Mr. Scott, did the professor praise me too much?" At the moment, Chen Tian is a little bit painful. Although he has shown some abilities, he just wants to gain a little attention and a little privilege. Instead of being taken seriously by Professor X. Knowing that this would be the case, he would be a little more stubborn and not choose to reveal his power. Unfortunately, there is no regret medicine in this world. Scott shook his head slightly. "West, you don't have to be modest here, and you don't have to hide your abilities. For us mutants, strength is strength. The teacher said that although you have only been awakening ability for half a month, your mental will is very stable, but you seem to be a little wary of people and things around you. It's good to be vigilant, but this is Xavier's school for gifted youngsters, a school for mutant teenagers. Here, you can completely trust the principal and the teacher. I promise absolutely no one here will hurt you, so you don't need to hide yourself." If Chen Tian was really a junior high school student in his teens, he would definitely be excited by Scott's words. But unfortunately, in this 15-year-old body, it is a social animal who has entered the society for a few years and understands that one should do things in a high-profile and low-key manner. So Chen Tian was noncommittal about Scott's words. Believe you, who doesn't know that mutants' emotions can be affected by ability? And mutant has all kinds of weird abilities, and his will is easily shaken and controlled by others. Believe you today, drag it out, and maybe it will be sold tomorrow. And there are a lot of black technologies in this world, especially biological genetics. Even robots like Sentry, which can replicate most of the mutant ability, are half mechanical and half biological. So Chen Tian's voice sounded in his mind, "System, if I am extracted from blood, body tissue, will the power of Krypton cells be deciphered and copied?" This is a question that Chen Tian has been worried about. He didn't hope that one day, after he showed his incomparably powerful strength and the speed of his terrifying strength, his body genes would be targeted. Then in this world, a bunch of people with the power of Superman came out. Facing Chen Tian's question, the system's voice sounded in his mind. The Kryptonian Superman bloodline owned by the host belongs to the Rule product, and cannot be copied or discovered. When the body tissue part belonging to the host leaves the host, the medium belonging to Krypton will dissipate under the power of the system's rule. That's good, so he doesn't have any scruples. Chen Tian breathed a sigh of relief in his heart, and an embarrassed look appeared on his face. "Mr. Scott, I have no idea of hiding my strength. I just think that I just entered the school, so I should keep a low profile. If I am too public, I may be rejected by my classmates." Chen Tian's words immediately gave those present a good impression of being humble, polite, and low-key, even though the young man in front of him had the ability. There was also a smile on Scott's face, and he said with admiration, "So that's the case, but you don't have to worry about these Westers, geniuses, they should be dazzling. Come on, attack with all your strength and let everyone know your strength." This time Chen Tian didn't refuse, just right, he also wanted to know how strong he is now, and Scott is a good reference. As the successor cultivated by Professor X, Scott has been ignored and weakened in the film. In fact, his strength is very strong, which can be seen from his identity as the captain of X-Men. If Scott is so weak, how can Storm, Wolverine, Iceman accept him? Okay, teacher, I'm going. Roar. Speaking, Chen Tian slowly exhaled, and his expression became serious. In fact, Chen Tian has no combat experience, whether it is before crossing or the original body. Adding up, he fought several times in school when he was a child. But it doesn't matter if you don't have experience. Anyway, this time it's a discussion within the school, and you just need to go all out. As the blood flow rate in the body accelerated, a terrifying force poured out from Chen Tian's tense muscles, and the whole person's momentum suddenly changed. I saw that Chen Tian's right foot muscles expanded in a circle and stepped on the ground. Boom! In an instant, a powerful force erupted, and the hard concrete floor cracked with tiny cracks, and Chen Tian had already shot out with a string of afterimages under the anti-shock force. At this moment, Chen Tian's speed almost reached 100 meters per second. Such an amazing speed almost made him appear in front of Scott across more than 10 meters in an instant like a teleportation, with his right fist clenched. The fist was blasted like a cannonball. Because the power is too strong and the speed is too fast, at the moment when the fist is blasted, the powerful force even squeezes the air in front of the fist into a transparent arc state. Exudes a harsh roar whistle. Such a violent punch made Scott's face change slightly, and subconsciously crossed his arms in front of him. Bang! A dull crash sounded in the training room. Exploding with a dull sound, Cyclops, who had been wearing glasses and had a calm momentum before, was blown away instantly under the surprised eyes of everyone, as if he had been hit by a train. Bang bang bang. Under the violent force of Chen Tian's full-strength punch, Scott was blasted more than 10 meters away. Then, after smashing the two ice walls left in front of Bobby, he slid on the ground for more than 10 meters before stopping, looking a little embarrassed. This punch made the entire training room quiet, and everyone's face showed surprise. What they were surprised was not Chen Tian's power. After all, Colossus' power was also very strong. What they were mainly surprised by was that Chen Tian's strength was so strong and his speed was so fast that his eyesight almost couldn't keep up. At this time, Chen Tian also reacted, let out a breath, and said apologetically, "Mr. Scott, are you all right? I didn't expect my strength to be so great." At the moment, Chen Tian was indeed a little surprised, and there was a trace of suppressed excitement. He didn't expect that his strength was so strong. Cough cough. Scott coughed twice in the distance, stood up from the ground, patted Bingxiao on his body, and said calmly, "I'm fine." It said it was fine, but Scott's arms were shaking slightly, but no one saw it. Scott took a breath, his voice was low, and he said doubtfully, "West, I remember when you tested a few days ago, your fist strength was only 1,300 kg. But why did I just feel that your strength has exceeded 15,000 kg? 15 tons of power." Shadowcat in the distance was a little shocked when he heard the words. He didn't expect Chen Tian's physical strength to be so strong. Isn't his mutant ability energy violent? Chen Tian said with a bit of, "Sorry, in the test that day, the first punch was actually my warm-up, and I swung it casually, so my performance was only a little bit. When I was ready to take the serious test later, the teacher who recorded it said it was okay. I also just came to the school at the time. I was afraid of offending the teacher who recorded it, so I didn't take the test again, so I don't know how strong it is. But I feel that my strength should not be 10 tons. Chen Tian really told the truth. His grip strength is not 10 tons, except for the so-called warm-up excuse. However, under normal circumstances, an ordinary person's fist strength is double the grip strength, plus the kinetic energy blessing brought by the speed of 1 second and 100 meters. The power of Chen Tian's punch just now should be close to, or even more than 20 tons. With the power of one punch and 20 tons, I will ask you if you are afraid." Hearing what Chen Tian said, Storm in the distance thoughtful and said, "This should be related to West's speed. Compared to Peter, who is only a little faster than ordinary people, his speed is 10 times faster than ordinary people. And we all know that the strength of a person's fist is not only determined by muscle and bone explosion, but also related to the speed of the fist. The basic rule of physics is that the faster the speed, the greater the strength." Under Storm's explanation, the people around understood why Chen Tian's power burst was so strong. But even so, many people were very surprised. The speed is more than 10 times that of ordinary people, the grip strength is at least 5 tons, and the fist strength exceeds 15 tons when it explodes. In terms of pure physical strength, it has already crushed all the mutant students in the audience. Although after becoming mutants, their physique will get a certain strengthening, whether it is strength or endurance, they are stronger than ordinary people. But this kind of power is limited, generally only a few times. After all, their mutants mainly rely on variant ability. Unless it is a mutant whose body is mutated and strengthened, the physical strength will be very strong. Thinking of this, the students below suddenly felt a lot more balanced. Yes, their mutant relies on ability. What if you are strong and fast? Can you wear all objects? Can you control plants? Can you wreak havoc from a distance with a fiery aura? Just as those students consoled themselves, Cyclops and Storm were shocked. Because they have seen Chen Tian's admission details, Preliminary Awakenings Energy Department, ability is Energy Berserk, level 1 strength, and potential level 3. The physical fitness is twice that of ordinary people, and the strengthening effect is average. Evaluation. After graduation, the probability of becoming an X-Men is less than 10%. At Xavier School of Giftedness, not all mutants graduate to become X-Men. This requires knowledge, combat experience, and ability to be recognized in all aspects. However, in this evaluation, on the 5th day of admission, Chen Tian showed that his physical strength continued to increase, and in 5 days, it increased 10 times that of ordinary people, and his strength reached 1.3000 kg and refreshed. The speed of this improvement has alarmed Professor X, and made this mutant freshman a key target. Definitely, they didn't know it at the time, when Chen Tian only showed half of his strength. And that's why Storm came to talk to him after class that day. After all, although there are many mutant students, few can become X-Men with strong combat power and stable ability. At the moment, it was just 10 days after Chen Tian entered school, and his physical strength had actually increased dozens of times that of ordinary people. Such a terrifying speed of improvement was simply terrifying. Although there are some mutants stronger than Chen Tian now, not to mention the speed of Quicksilver is so fast that people lose the concept of time. But the problem is that the speed of Quicksilver is brought by ability. When ability is cast, it affects the surrounding and puts itself into an overspeed state that exceeds physical limitations. But Chen Tian is different, he is purely physical. Thinking of this, Scott has decided to adjust the confidentiality level of Chen Tian's information to the highest level after this class is over. Scott said in a low voice, "Everyone has seen the strength of West's classmates, and I am no match for my physical strength alone. Next, I will do ability training. I will suppress the strength of Cyclops to attack West. You can use ability to resist or evade." Okay. Unexpectedly, Chen Tian, who changed his training method with just one punch, paused, then nodded. The ability of Energy Rage, Chen Tian has not really used it. At the moment, he took a deep breath, and with a thought, activated another force in his body. Just like gasoline being ignited, with Chen Tian activating ability, some special genes in his body became active, bursting out with violent power. Boom! Looking from a distance, Chen Tian seems to have a substantial transparent energy eruption, forming a strong spiral wind, which blew his clothes. Roar, 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 roar. The transparent strong wind formed by the power spurted out from Chen Tian's body up and down, spinning from bottom to top, blowing his hair to dance wildly, covering a range of 1 meter outside of him. In this scene, if the color of the erupted energy turns into golden blue again, it will be a picture of Super Saiyan transformation. Definitely, this is to ignore the shoe on his left foot with the toes exposed, and the shoe on the foot was torn under the explosion of the powerful force under the explosion of the front foot. This scene, the Shadowcat's eyes lit up after watching. It's so cool. Fake. This guy is pretending again. A mutant who likes Shadowcat is a little sour. While others were surprised by Chen Tian's transformation, he was also a little surprised. Because he found that as the violent energy roared in the body, the muscles all over his body swelled in an instant, bursting out with powerful forces. At this moment, Chen Tian felt that his power had increased by at least 5 times, an astonishing increase. However, when this ability is being cast, the erupted energy seems to be burning, quickly consuming his physical strength. At this time, Scott in the distance pressed his hand on the frame and reminded, "West, I'm going to attack." After speaking, a bright red light lit up on the glasses, and then 2 red beams exploded with a bang, emitting a fiery light that penetrated the air. The laser beam was very fast, and it only crossed a distance of more than 30 meters in an instant. However, at the moment when Cyclops broke out, Chen Tian's right foot moved and his strength exploded. Boom! Under the five-fold increase in strength, the ground burst, definitely, and the shoe on the right foot also shattered. But at this time, Chen Tian couldn't care about this. Under the powerful anti-shock force, he moved more than 10 meters and appeared in the distance in an instant, dodging the attack. Boom! The two beams landed on the floor where Chen Tian was originally, and the ground exploded in an instant, and the splashing fire and gravel swept across, forming a circle of hot shockwave. At this moment, the two laser beams slightly shook their heads with Scott, like two indestructible laser machines traversing, sweeping towards Chen Tian in the distance. Boom boom boom. Where the laser passed, the ice wall collapsed, the ground was cut, the vines wrapped around the ring and the swamp that softened the ground were all shattered. Powerful. Scott was very domineering when he punched him before, but Chen Tian was suppressed in the blink of an eye. Under the laser beam emitting a fiery breath, Chen Tian surrounded the field with afterimages behind him, constantly using the ice and other obstacles to avoid. And whenever Chen Tian wanted to explode in speed and approached Scott, he would be forced back by a laser beam. The last time it was only close to 10 meters. Although Scott is not as fast as him, now people just need to stand there and turn their eyes to launch an attack, there is no need to dodge or chase. Fake, didn't it say that Cyclops has a slow reaction speed and can be easily hanged? Reflexively bent over, dodging the moment when the laser beam swept across, Chen Tian couldn't help complaining in his heart. Think about it, in the movie, Cyclops was handsome for only a few seconds every time he played, either by being hit by the enemy when he was unprepared, knocked out, or controlled. But at the moment Cyclops showed a completely different kind of combat power. Not to mention that he took Chen Tian's 20-ton power punch, but was blasted away with a strong physique that was not injured. The laser beam control of this hand alone is very strong. Not only can the strength of the beam be adjusted at will, but it can also stop when you say it, shoot when you say it, and sweep at will to form a powerful fire suppression. Besides, it's very durable. And this destruction range has been controlled around the arena. Whenever a laser beam is going to pass through the arena and hit the wall in the distance, it will disappear instantly. Therefore, although the two fought fiercely, everyone in the audience watched with relish, and they didn't have to worry about being accidentally injured. However, it seems that Chen Tian has been suppressed all the time, but it is not without gains. He continued to use the ability with all his strength, so that his understanding of the ability of energy berserk was deepened. For example, the energy gust that spews out of the body, in addition to the handsome special effects, also has a certain repelling effect. During the battle, when the beams fell on the ground at close range and exploded, the shockwave and fiery fire were blocked by the energy outside his body. And with the continuous explosion, the X gene in his body became more active, and the intensity of the violent energy erupted was slowly increasing. In this case, the increase to his body is 1 point stronger. However, this increase only increases the explosive strength of the muscles, and the speed increase is not obvious, otherwise the speed of the five-fold increase has already entered supersonic speed. Just when Chen Tian was fighting and feeling the change of ability. Scott, Orlo and others in the distance are also observing to understand his power characteristics. Suddenly the laser beam stopped, and Cyclops in the distance said in a low voice, "West, I will suppress some of the beam's power next. You use ability to block head-on, try your ability's defense limit." It is good. Chen Tian did not refuse, because he knew that the other party was helping him test. Only by knowing enough about all aspects of your ability can you play the best role in battle, and you will not have accidents due to misjudgment. As Scott adjusted the intensity, a much weaker beam burst out of his eyes in an instant. The beam begins to expand the moment it is ejected. When they came to Chen Tian across more than 20 meters, the two beams had expanded to the thickness of a fist, exuding a fiery impact. This time, Chen Tian did not evade, but crossed his arms to block, and the transparent energy erupted from the whole body blocked in front of him like a shield. Boom! At the moment when the beam hit Chen Tian, it collided with the half-meter thick energy shield, and the powerful and hot shockwave squeezed the shield to 20 centimeters. And here, the laser beam is still advancing slowly, and the two forces continue to collide and cancel, emitting blazing rays of light, forming a circle of dazzling arc-shaped halos. At the same time, there is a powerful impact force that penetrates the energy shield and acts on Chen Tian, wanting to push him back and fly away. However, this impact kinetic energy could not shake Chen Tian's footsteps. For a while, the two sides were deadlocked. At this moment, Scott, who controlled the power of the laser in the distance, shouted, "West, I'm going to increase my strength, remember to stop when I can't hold on." "Teacher, come on." Boom. At the moment when Chen Tian's voice fell, the continuous blasting laser beam suddenly doubled, and the output blazing energy and impact soared. Under the powerful force, the pressure on Chen Tian skyrocketed. The energy layer in front of him was instantly suppressed to 5 centimeters, and the energy erupted from other parts of his body was also weak. When the two energies collided, there was a rumbling buzzing sound, and the light emitted was even more dazzling, illuminating the entire training room. The faces of those students who came down from the reflected arena were all surprised. I didn't expect that Chen Tian was not only strong in body, but also seemed to be not weak in X gene ability. Mutants' ability comes from the X gene in their bodies, which consumes stamina when used and cast. Physical strength is actually another kind of energy. At the moment Chen Tian's susceptive perception realized that his physical strength was greatly consumed. However, his physique attribute has reached more than 400. Not only is he powerful, but his resilience is also amazing, so these consumptions are actually not as fast as his recovery. It's just that although there is no problem with physical strength, he already feels that he has reached a limit. Compared to the burst energy of his ability, Scott's laser beam power is more destructive, and a trace of laser power can evaporate 10 times its violent power. Just need a little stronger laser beam, and continue to shoot for a while, and the energy shield outside him will collapse. So Chen Tian shouted decisively, "Teacher, it's all right." Suddenly, Scott's eyes dimmed, and the laser beam disappeared. And Chen Tian also dissipated the violent energy outside his body, gasping for breath, and a cold sweat broke out on his face, pretending to be a lot of consumption. Roar roar, still a great teacher, I just held on for a while and felt like I couldn't hold it anymore. Chen Tian gasped and said weakly. Scott shook his head. No, West, your performance today has been very good. Okay, that's it for today's combat class. At this moment, Storm stood up and interrupted Scott, who was about to say something. After casting ability, everyone's stamina has been exhausted, and now it's disbanded in place, go back and rest. West, my name is Max. Hello, West, I'm Side, get to know you, the ability you had when you fought with the teacher was cool. Thank you for the compliment, your energy control is also very good. After walking out of the underground training room, the mutants took the initiative to call Chen Tian Roar. This is the status effect brought about by power. Although Chen Tian's ability seems to be ordinary, not as magical as their ability, but combined with his powerful body, it is enough to crush most of the people present. Therefore, the attitude of these people has also changed, and they are much more enthusiastic than at the beginning. However, as a mutant who is not weak, everyone has their own pride, so after getting to know Chen Tian, they dispersed. Shadowcat Katie, who didn't leave, leaned over and smiled, West, let's have a cup of coffee together. Smelling the faint fragrance from the girl, Chen Tian did not refuse, okay. In the underground training room, after Chen Tian and others left, a middle-aged white man walked in, and Scott said politely, Mr. Jake, please. The middle-aged man shook his head, you're welcome. Speaking of which, the middle-aged man squatted down and pressed his hands on the ground, and under repeated battles, the hundreds of square meters of ground that looked like ruins fluctuated like the surface of water. Under the watchful eyes of the three, the ground fluctuated and recovered at a speed visible to the naked eye. Looking at this scene that was like going back in time, Iceman Poppy couldn't help but exclaim, Mr. Jake's ability is amazing once you see it. In the face of the admiration of the three, the middle-aged white man said angrily, don't talk about it, it's not that you don't know that my ability can only make up for the bottom plate. All of a sudden, the three of them chatted and didn't say anything about it. Mutant's ability is so strange and completely contrary to the rules of physics. Whether it's Cyclops' eyes that emit laser beams, Iceman's freezing ability that freezes water molecules, or Colossus' steel that completely changes the structure of matter. Including the ability of the middle-aged man in front of him, restore the ground within a certain range. It looks like going back in time, which is extremely terrifying, but it cannot affect other objects except on the concrete floor. And it must be a concrete floor, which is a bit painful. The energy intensity of the ability burst is 3 times higher than that of the entrance, and the state is stable when used. It can greatly increase the body's strength and has certain shielding characteristics. Compared to this, his physical strength has improved more significantly, 20 times stronger than expected when he entered the school, and it seems that he has not yet reached the upper limit. I think his awakening ability is not an energy explosion, but a body strengthening, and the energy explosion ability is more like a side effect of the body ability awakening. In the principal's office, Scott reports to Professor X about Chen Tian. After listening to Scott's detailed description, Professor X nodded with a smile. Your inference should be correct, we all made a wrong judgment at the beginning. Judging from the current information, his physical strength will continue to grow rapidly, and his potential has completely reached the alpha level, which belongs to the close combat type. And he has very few weaknesses. With a little training, he is enough to become a pillar of the X-Men team. In this world, the level of mutant can be divided into 5 levels, from high to low, alpha, beta, gamma, delta and epsilon. However, this level refers to status and potential, not combat power. As for the Omega level, it is a level above the Alpha level once proposed by Professor X. It means the ultimate and infinite meaning. But so far, only the dead Jean Grey has been judged to have Omega level potential, but not an Omega level mutant. As for Professor X and Magneto, although in outside rumors, he and Magneto are both Omega level, but he is very clear that they are still Alpha level. It's just that in the past few decades, each has developed ability to the extreme, so it looks very powerful. However, Professor X felt that Storm and Iceman should also have Omega level potential. It's just that potential is potential. Whether they can develop their ability to that point depends on them. Now the Academy has another Alpha level mutant with stable status and powerful ability, even Professor X couldn't help but smile. Next, West can focus on it. Is teacher. The next morning, as soon as Chen Tian walked into the classroom and sat down, the curly-haired boy behind him came over and said curiously, West, I heard that you had a battle training with Mr. Scott yesterday, and you won't lose or win. Quote. Without waiting for Chen Tian to answer, the girl with freckles on the right side turned her head, her eyes glowing. No, I heard that West defeated Mr. Scott. What? West is so powerful that he actually beat Mr. Scott. Suddenly the junior high school students around Roar were shocked. Yes, I heard that too. It is said that West deployed ability to form a shield, and charged with Mr. Scott's Cyclops laser, knocking the teacher over with one punch. Really, it's amazing. Looking at the excited junior high school students around, Chen Tian, who didn't even have a chance to explain, opened his mouth and was a little confused. Obviously, he just had a sparring with Cyclops yesterday. Although he smashed the opponent with a punch at the beginning, he was suppressed throughout the whole process. What's going on now? Chen Tian didn't know. This news was passed out by a senior yesterday, and the words beautified him a little. For example, it focuses on the fact that he knocked Scott out with one punch. Then pass one by one, more and more exaggerated. The degree of exaggeration is equivalent to ancient times. A man at the head of the village fell, and when it reached the end of the village, it became the man who fell to his death, and everyone waited for the opening. Noon, canteen. When Chen Tian came to the corner with the plate and sat down. The black-haired girl on the opposite side, who was wearing headphones and waiting for him to eat with him, raised her head. Without waiting for her to speak, Chen Tian said decisively, I didn't beat Mr. Scott. I was suppressed by the teacher throughout the whole process. The teacher is actually very powerful. Looking at Chen Tian, who was denied by Yi Jianzhen, the girl blinked her emerald green eyes and said weakly, I just want to ask, West, do you like to eat shortbread? Like, oh. The girl nodded obediently, and then ate quietly, letting Chen Tian breathe a sigh of relief. I don't know who passed it on in yesterday's training session, so let's pass it on. Who knows, the more exaggerated it becomes, the more it becomes Chen Tian who seriously injured Scott with a punch. Who is Scott? Captain of the X-Men. His eyes can emit powerful laser beams that destroy everything. And just over a week after entering school, West, who was only 15 years old, actually beat him. It's incredible, it's amazing. So this morning, Chen Tian was surrounded by people wherever he went, and many people asked him if it was true, which made Chen Tian, who had explained all morning, tirelessly. So in the afternoon, Chen Tian didn't go to class, but found a quiet lawn and lay lazily on the ground to bask in the sun. Under the sunlight, Chen Tian only felt warm and drowsy. However, the cells of his whole body are evolving and strengthening at an alarming rate under the sun, causing a strange feeling of being lazy and wanting to sleep, but being full of energy and unable to fall asleep. Chen Tian's spirit unfolded, covering his whole body, silently feeling the indescribable changes in his body. After a long time, Chen Tian withdrew his mental power and sighed slightly. I still can't perceive it, it's a pity. At the moment, although his spiritual attributes are very high, he can cover his whole body, but he can't be microscopic, so he can't clearly perceive the subtle changes in the depths of his body. Chen Tian was actually curious about the X-gene ability that Angel used yesterday. I want to know where this power comes from, and what is the difference between it and krypton cells. At the same time, as for the changes in krypton cells, he only knew that sun exposure could make them evolve and become stronger, but he only knew what was happening, but he didn't know why. It seems that these secrets can only be found out after my mental power can reach the microscopic level in the body. While thinking about it, the thoughts in Chen Tian's mind were running fast. He was recalling yesterday's actual combat class and analyzing the information obtained. Judging from yesterday's performance, mutant is not as weak as in the movie. In the movie, when the so-called powerful mutant fights, except for ability, the speed and strength of the body are average, but this is a misunderstanding. In other words, those reserve X-Men mutants were very strong yesterday. The weakest one also belongs to the third level, which is not comparable to the garbage of the first and second level. But at the same time, these mutants, including Storm, Iceman, are not as strong as the comics. In the comics setting, Iceman can freeze the world, Storm can control the global atmosphere, and is unparalleled, and even Cyclops can destroy the planet with all its strength. But in the fight yesterday, they did not give Chen Tian such a strong sense of oppression, they were just some more powerful transcendents. But as long as I think about it, I think this is normal. If these mutants, including Professor X and Magneto, are as powerful as they are said in the comics, how can they be persecuted by ordinary people? It only takes one person to destroy the world and push everything horizontally. My current strength is weaker than Cyclops in terms of pure attack and destruction, but it should be stronger than Wolverine. And this is only 10 days. Thinking of this, Chen Tian showed a faint smile on his face. Now he doesn't have Awakening Superman's steel body, super speed, super heat ray, wait until these ability awakening, and then bask in the sun for a few years. Magneto, Iron Man, Hulk, or even God are not worth mentioning by then. At this time, Chen Tian felt a little itchy in his eyes and couldn't help rubbing it. For the next 2 days, the rumors died down and everyone knew that West didn't beat Mr. Scott at all. Even so, Chen Tian is still famous in the whole school. When Mutant, who is younger than him, meets him, he will look at him with admiration. Those senior high school students will also politely nod when they meet. Obviously, after showing some strength, Chen Tian's status in the school has changed significantly. In the afternoon, all the students in the school participate in the outdoor activity class, that is, play. And while the students were playing together in 2s and 3s, Clarice came to the edge of the lawn. There, wearing a black t-shirt and white pants, the clean and handsome Chen Tian was crouching under a big tree, not knowing what he was looking at. In front of Chen Tian, the girl whispered curiously, "West, are you looking at ants? You think I'd be so naive?" Chen Tian glanced at her speechlessly, then turned around, continued to concentrate, and looked at the dry leaves on the ground. Since the day before yesterday, Chen Tian's eyes have been itchy, as if some kind of metamorphosis is happening. This feeling grew stronger over time. At the moment, as he concentrated, he keenly felt that a trace of golden power began to gather in his eyes, exuding a fiery temperature. This fiery power gathered in Chen Tian's eyes, boiling, there was an urge to spew out, but it was always close. Clarice, who was on the side, squatted down curiously, looked at the ground, found nothing, and couldn't help looking up at Chen Tian. Then I noticed that his eyes were red, and the redness was abnormal. At this moment, the red light in Chen Tian's eyes was bright, and a fiery force burst out in an instant, turning into a pair of red light beams bursting out. Roar! Under that hot light, the leaves on the ground instantly burned. The sudden change surprised Clarice and couldn't help but startle Roar. It immediately attracted the attention of some mutant students in the distance, and they all looked over. I saw the beams of light in Chen Tian's eyes. In the corridor, Storm looked at the oncoming Scott and said, "Scott, I just heard that West awakening the Cyclops ability." Scott, who strode forward, moved his footsteps and nodded slightly. Yes, but I'm not sure if it's Cyclops, or it may be another ray ability. And just as he was about to leave, Storm's eyes suddenly became a little strange. Scott, I remember that West was brought back by you, right? Yes, what's wrong? In the face of Storm's strange eyes, Scott felt a little inexplicable. Storm folded his arms and said thoughtfully, you brought West back yourself. His hair is black, and yours is black too. And you have Cyclops, and he awakening Cyclops. Speaking of which, the expression on Storm's face made him even more confused. I don't understand. What did she understand? At this time Storm stepped forward, patted Scott on the shoulder, and whispered mysteriously, Scott, is West your illegitimate child outside? It's just that you didn't dare to bring him back because of Chin. It wasn't until after his awakening mutant power that you had to come forward and bring him back to school. Suddenly Scott was dumbfounded, and said angrily, Orlo, don't talk nonsense here. I swear by my teacher's honor that West has nothing to do with me. Also, my hair is tan, not pure black. After speaking, Scott ignored her and walked straight to the principal's office at the end of the corridor. In fact, it's not just Orlo. When Chen Tian suddenly awakening the ability similar to Cyclops, there are some rumors in the school. After all, since mutant was widely known until now, no two people have ever had the same super ability, and there are very few similar ones. When Scott knocked on the door and entered Professor X's office, he found that Chen Tian was also inside. Both Professor X and Chen Tian looked at him when he entered. A smile appeared on Professor X's face. Scott, here you are. Teacher, West. Scott made a move roar, and then came to Chen Tian, a little surprised. Scott, the teacher said that you have awakening the new ability of the Ray class. Chen Tian nodded. Yes, Mr. Scott, but my rays are not very powerful. Not very strong, what do you mean? Scott was a little puzzled. Professor X said mildly. West is different from you, his ray ability should be an additional ability of body strengthening, so it is not very strong. As an I-ray capable person, when Scott was awakening as a child, a powerful laser light tore apart a building and erupted with terrifying power. Today, although Chen Tian also awakening the super heat ray, when he and Professor X were experimenting, the ray range was only over 10 meters, and the power would be weakened beyond the distance. And the shooting that lasted for 1 minute only melted a piece of iron of the file size of the fist, emitting a high temperature of about 1000 degrees Celsius and a weak impact. It is equivalent to saying that although Chen Tian Awakening has a new ability, it is currently dispensable, and it is only for ordinary people. After listening to Professor X's explanation, Scott felt a little regretful. So that's the case, it's a pity West, I thought you had another powerful ability. It's okay. Chen Tian smiled, but he was not disappointed. Is Superman's super heat ray strong? Definitely strong. The silver or gold super heat ray is a terrifying ability that can destroy galaxies. Even the Superman in the Bronze Age, the super heat ray is very powerful, and it is easy to destroy a high-rise building. As for why his ray is so weak, it should be related to his weak strength. After all, he has only absorbed the energy of the sun for 10 days, and he has not evolved enough and is not strong. Don't be discouraged. At this time, Professor X shook his head and said gently, West, your ray ability has growth potential because it is related to physical strengthening. When your strength increases, the ray ability will naturally become stronger. After that, Professor X looked at Scott again. Scott, you are a ray ability user, and the experience in controlling rays should be of some help to West. So next, I want you to specifically teach him this knowledge and master the new ability as soon as possible, no problem. Is teacher. With Professor X's order, and since he admired Chen Tian very much from the beginning, Scott did not refuse and took him to his training room. Yes, the energy of the stable ray is continuously output. In the training room, 2 fiery red light beams shot out from Chen Tian's eyes and landed on the steel wall several meters away. Under the continuous fire of heat ray, the steel in that area turned red at a speed visible to the naked eye, and shot out countless sparks, emitting fiery high temperature. At this time, you should be able to vaguely feel that there are many subtle energy lines around the eyes, which are delivering converted ray energy. What you have to do next is to use powerful thoughts to close those energy lines one by one. Scott on the side taught patiently. When you can close 80% of the lines, you can easily and freely control the file size of the ray's power. At this time, Chen Tian still had spare energy, and couldn't help but ask curiously, Teacher, are you able to control most of the energy circuits now? Cough. Not yet, I'm still a little short. Scott coughed dryly, and then said solemnly, this kind of fine control is actually very difficult. After all, eyes are a very delicate existence, not to mention those energy lines inside the eyes, which are as faint as bloodshots and difficult to detect. I can control most of the energy lines to close now. It's the result of my hard work for decades. You have to work harder. Is it hard? Chen Tian silently perceived that 1/10 of the energy line had been closed, and a question mark appeared in his head. Although the abilities of the two were only similar, under the guidance of Scott, Chen Tian mastered Heat Ray in just 2 days. You can control 90% of the energy circuit switches at will, and choose the power to be released with a single thought. Definitely, mastering the Heat Ray ability so quickly should be related to the fact that his ray power is still too weak and his mental and brain power is strong. But it also made Scott very envious. His Cyclops are so powerful that if they don't have the ruby glasses on their faces, they can't even open their eyes. Because once you open your eyes, the hot laser beam will roar out instantly, destroying everything in front of you. Seeing that the rays in Chen Tian's eyes turned into red threads like infrared light, and then turned into a transparent fan shaped like a flashlight, Scott waved his hand. Okay, I have nothing to teach you. The next step is to practice diligently and master your own strength. When Yan Chen Tian retracted the ray and thank you teacher. Chen Tian is sincerely grateful. While he might be in control of Heat Ray for a few days without Scott's teaching, there are some things that can't be thought of that way. Moreover, Chen Tian found that he who integrates the Superman template is not yet a real Kryptonian, but is slowly transforming into a Kryptonian. That's why there are some abilities that Superman is born with, which will be like awakening ability in him. Feeling the sincerity in Chen Tian's eyes, Scott had a faint smile on his face. No thanks, as a teacher, this is what I should do. By the way, West, your physical strength has improved a little in the past 2 days. Regarding this, Chen Tian did not hide it, nodded and said, yes, teacher, I feel that my strength has become much stronger in the past 2 days. Scott held up the frame of the mirror and thoughtfully, it seems that your real mutant ability is indeed a kind of body strengthening. Speaking of this, Scott suddenly said, West, since you can control the rays perfectly, you should be able to learn physical exercises. Physical training. Chen Tian looked at Cyclops with some doubts. Scott smiled slightly. West, you are not curious, why is my awakening ability as Cyclops but my body is strong? Isn't that the strengthening of your ability, teacher? Chen Tian was a little surprised. Scott shook his head. After all, the mutant awakening ability, the physical fitness will indeed be enhanced to a certain extent, but this improvement is limited. Unless it's a body strengthening, like you in a mutant like Colossus, the strength is exaggerated. Scott sighed. Many years ago, the teacher once felt that although most of our mutants have strong abilities, they have weak physical weaknesses. This feeling is probably because of his accidental paralysis of the lower body. There was a strange look in Chen Tian's eyes. Speaking of this, Scott changed his words. For this reason, the teacher and us have studied for many years and invented an exercise method that converts mutant energy and strengthens our body. That's why my body is also very strong. Even if I don't need ability, it's not a problem for me to fight dozens of special forces by myself. However, in this energy training method, the strengthening effect is related to the mutant ability you have. The stronger the ability attribute, the more obvious the strengthening effect. And this ability also has some restrictions, only for mutants with energy ability. And the mutants of the mental and physical mutants are ineffective, because their mental power cannot be converted into physical energy. Definitely, this strengthening is not without limits. Generally, it can strengthen arm muscles and bones by about 5 to 10 times. Speaking of this, Scott is a little regretful. It would be nice if this strengthening could be improved without limit. Scott Chen Tian said in a low voice, West, I will tell you this control method now, I hope it will help you improve your strength. Chen Tian said with some interest, thank you teacher. 5 times to 10 times, if the effect is so strong, it might be of some help to him. Soon, under the guidance of Scott, Chen Tian quickly learned how to transform energy and strengthen the body. This method is complex, and simple. The most important thing is the need for a strong fine control ability, and for this, Chen Tian with strong spiritual power is not lacking. After learning the method, Chen Tian and Scott made a move roar, ready to go out to find a place to bask in the sun, and try the effect of this physical exercise method by the way. But as soon as he came out of Scott's office, Chen Tian saw the corner of the corridor, where the black-haired girl was wearing earplugs, looking a little lonely. Chen Tian came to squat down in front of her, and said strangely, "Clarice, why are you here?" The girl lowered her head and whispered, "West, am I very useless?" Chen Tian cared. "Why do you say that?" The girl put her hands on her knees, lowered her head and said softly, "I've been at school for so long, I can't even do math in the 3rd grade of elementary school, and I can't understand what the teacher is saying. Am I too stupid, so my classmates don't play with me, and the teacher doesn't bother to pay attention to me?" Said this, the girl's face showed loneliness, which made people feel a little distressed. "He didn't go to the classroom for the past 2 days, what happened?" Chen Tian was puzzled in his heart, and then he couldn't help complaining. "You wear headphones all day long, your face is expressionless, giving people a cold feeling. When people talk to you, you only know that you are okay. Which student would come to play with you in this situation? After all, no one likes a hot face and a cold butt. As for those teachers, they know that this is the mutant school, and the important thing is to have control and familiarity with ability, not to ask you to go to university. So even if your grades are poor, you will not be forced to study." However, although he was complaining in his heart, Chen Tian still had a smile on his face and said gently, "How could it be, Clarice, you are not stupid, but your foundation is poor." "Really?" The girl raised her head and looked at him cautiously. Chen Tian nodded affirmatively. "Really, you are so cute, how come no one likes it? For example, I like the lovely Clarice very much." "Hey, like me." Chen Tian's words made the sensitive girl's face turn red, her mouth widened, and she looked a little nervous. Seeing this, Chen Tian couldn't help rolling his eyes. "Don't think about it, Clarice, what I said about liking is not the liking you think, but the liking of friends. You're only 13 years old, and you're still a child. I don't want to be regarded as a pervert. Well, from tomorrow, I will assist you in your studies, so that you can catch up with the progress of those classmates as soon as possible." "Oh," the girl hummed weakly, a little embarrassed for her thinking. It's useless." On the rooftop, Chen Tian was like a Super Saiyan transformed, surrounded by transparent violent energy, exuding a strong sense of oppression. Although this ability only increases the power by 5 times, it looks very imposing. There is a saying that strong or not is a question of version, but handsome or not is a lifetime. With the activation of the X gene in the body, Chen Tian's susceptive perception said that in the body, physical strength, that is, the energy contained in a part of the cells, is transformed into a burst of burning energy. According to the method that Scott said, Chen Tian's mental strength was condensed, controlled step by step. It took half an hour to reverse a bit of burning violent energy and strengthen his body. Then I found that this method really works and can improve a certain amount of physical strength. But, for him, this effect is very weak, so weak that before he is in the sun, the speed of the body strengthening is 1,000th of the increase. Such a weak improvement suddenly made Chen Tian lose his motivation. Immediately, his mind moved, the ability dissipated, and the energy erupting like a gust of wind disappeared. The weather in May was already a bit hot. At the moment under the sunlight, Chen Tian could keenly feel that his body strength increased at an alarming rate. Sure enough, the feeling of getting stronger when you lie down is still comfortable, and you can forget about cultivation. Isn't it good to lie down? Thinking of this, Chen Tian thought and called out the attribute page. Host: Chen Tian. Race: human. Bloodline: Krypton Superman, Bronze Age. Constitution: 980. Spirit: 472. Strength: 1190. Grip strength 16 tons. Agility: 952. Running speed per second, 150 to 180. Ability: Heat ray characteristic: 500 approximately 1000 degrees Celsius high temperature, weak impact. X gene ability: Energy rage level 1. Storage space: 1x1. In just 2 days, his strength has skyrocketed again, and his physique is close to 1,000 points, which is equivalent to 100 times that of ordinary people. Such a powerful physique made Chen Tian's body density reach an astonishing level. Bones are comparable to steel, and muscles and skin are extremely tough. At this density, sharp weapons like ordinary swords cannot cut the skin at all, and even a small caliber pistol can't hurt him. And even if some powerful bullets penetrate the skin, they will be blocked by strong muscles, which is amazing. In addition, the grip strength has skyrocketed from 6 tons to 16 tons, which means that even without the blessing of speed kinetic energy, Chen Tian can burst out more than 30 tons of terrifying power with one punch. Such a powerful force, concentrated in the area of the file size of the fist, is enough to blast a person with one punch. However, compared to the skyrocketing physical fitness, the growth of mental attributes is much slower, and there is also agility. Strange system, my agility attribute is more than 90 times that of an ordinary person, and my physique is close to 100 times. According to the average running speed of an average person of 6 meters per second, with 100 times my physique, even if my running speed is not 600 meters per second, it shouldn't be only about 180 meters, right? Chen Tian was a little puzzled. Facing his question, the cold voice of the system sounded in his mind. Agility attributes represent the host's body coordination and neural responses, not simply movement speed. Before there was no ability involving speed, a person's movement speed consisted of the explosion of body power, the obstruction of external substances, and the influence of planetary gravity. Host, your physique is very strong, but the faster you are, the stronger the material obstacles you receive, and the greater the pull from gravity. Therefore, although your physical response and coordination are nearly 100 times that of ordinary people, your movement speed is not that fast. Okay, Chen Tian thought about it and found that it was indeed the case. For example, a 10,000-ton cargo ship has an engine horsepower of 100,000 horses, but its speed is very slow. The reason is the external resistance from seawater. And when a person's speed reaches a certain level, the air will be as strong as a water wall, or even a steel wall. On the second day off, the weather was cloudy and rainy, so Chen Tian did not go out. 9 is 9, 29 8. In Chen Tian's room, a girl with long black and purple hair was sitting at the table, whispering the 99 formulas that Chen Tian taught her, and doing math problems. The way he counts with his fingers is cute. According to Chen Tian's understanding during this period of time, Clarice wandered with her adoptive father every day when she was a child. That's why she couldn't keep up with her studies after she came to mutant school. At the moment next to the girl, Chen Tian lay lazily on the table, resting his chin in his palm, his eyes glowing red, emitting a fiery light. The target of heat ray is the base of the teapot on the table. Under the heat of hundreds of degrees Celsius, the water in the teapot quickly boiled, and it was steaming hot. Chen Tian doesn't like rainy days because there is no sun. Without sunlight, his strength improvement would be stagnant. Unless one day he can fly up, penetrate the thick rain layer, and stand outside the atmosphere, he can bask in the sun for 360 days without dead ends. Buckle up. At this time, there was a knock on the door, and the heat ray in Chen Tian's eyes dissipated, and he turned back and said, "Please come in, the door is not locked." Click. The door opened and Katie the pretty shadow cat walked in, followed by the burly colossus Peter. Looking at the two people who came in, Chen Tian smiled. "Hi. Katie, Peter, you came just in time. How about the tea I made? I heard that this thing is very popular in the East. I specifically asked the logistics teacher to buy it for me when I went out." Tea. After Katie sat down, she looked curiously at the steaming teacup in front of her. The water inside is light red with a faint fragrance. Colossus also did it, and said in a jar, "I've heard this before, and indeed many people in the East like to drink it. Especially in Sakura country. I heard that people there burn incense and bathe before drinking tea, and boil it several times, which is very troublesome anyway. Have a bath before drinking this water. It's such a hassle." Katie was a little stunned. Chen Tian smiled slightly. "It's not that exaggerated, those people are just restless, so they need these external assistants, which is called a sense of ritual. And I actually don't understand this. I want to taste the taste of this drink. I drink it if it tastes good, and I don't drink it if it doesn't taste good." With that said, Chen Tian poured a cup for the curious Clarice, and then introduced, "Clarice, they are Katie and Peter, both seniors. This is Clarice, my friend." Clarice whispered politely, "Hello." Katie waved her hand and said with a smile, "Clarice, I know you. I heard that your ability is teleportation, which is somewhat similar to mine." Peter also made a move roar. Calling Katie and the others today, apart from inviting them to drink tea, Chen Tian has two purposes. One is to get in touch with Colossus and see if he can awakening the iron body in advance. Another is to introduce friends to Clarice. In Chen Tian's mind, he will awakening heat ray, which may be related to his fight with Scott that day, otherwise awakening should not be so early. Therefore, the power of heat ray is not very strong. After all, it is too early to be born. But it doesn't matter if heat ray is not strong, anyway, it will improve with his strength in the future, and one more ability means one more means. The critical moment may play an unexpected role. After playing Roar, Katie and the two curiously held up the cups. After drinking, they found that the taste was light and not as good as coffee. Clarice did the same. After taking a sip, he blinked and looked at Chen Tian before he stopped talking. Chen Tian chuckled. Is it not used to drinking? Clarice nodded. Chen Tian shrugged. It's okay if you're not used to drinking it, and I'm not used to drinking it either. Puff. Suddenly, Katie, who had been holding back, laughed. West, since you can't drink it, why do you want to drink this? You don't understand. Chen Tian shook his head, didn't say this, and then looked curiously at the thing behind Peter's back. Peter, what are you carrying on your back? Colossus Ern said. Easel. Easel. Katie smiled and said. West, don't you know, Peter's hobby is painting, so when he has nothing to do, he likes to paint portraits with his easel on his back. This hobby is very good. Chen Tian paused for a while, and said this sentence. Who would have thought that Colossus, who is as strong as Tyson and like a strong man, likes to be so literary and artistic? Speaking of his hobbies, Peter suddenly became interested. West, Clarice, why don't I paint a portrait for you as a souvenir? Before Chen Tian could speak, Clarice's eyes lit up and said weakly, is it okay? Definitely can. Seeing that she was very interested, Chen Tian did not refuse. I saw Colossus on the opposite side took off the backpack, opened it, took out the paper, pencils and other tools one by one, and then looked at the two people on the opposite side and pondered slightly. He was conceiving the structure of the picture. In less than a minute, Colossus's hands moved, and a rustling voice sounded. On the white drawing paper on the easel, Colossus's wrist moved steadily, his expression was serious and concentrating, and his whole body exuded an artistic atmosphere. Infected by the atmosphere, the room was quiet, no one disturbed. After an unknown amount of time, when the rustling stopped, a smile appeared on Colossus' serious face. Okay. Saying that, Colossus turned the easel in his hand under the expectant gaze of the girl. On the drawing paper, a little girl with long hair and a shawl, wearing headphones, was doing her homework with her head down. Her delicate facial features were serious, and she looked cute and serious. Next to the girl, a boy was lying lazily at the table, resting his chin in his left hand, turning his head slightly to look at the girl with a lazy expression. In Colossus's pen, the simple description outlines the three-dimensional handsomeness of the boy's facial features, and the girl's cute and serious, giving a warm atmosphere. It is obviously just a black pencil portrait, but it gives people a lifelike feeling. Chen Tian praised. Amazing, I didn't expect you to draw so well, Peter. Hearing the compliment, Colossus showed a happy smile on his face, then looked at Clarice beside him. Little Clarice, do you like it? I like it. The girl whose eyes had already been shining definitely nodded. Colossus was even more pleased with the approval of the two, and took the portrait down and handed it to Clarice. At this time, Katie on the side smiled and said, actually, Peter started to learn to draw. The purpose is to help himself master power. Painting can also help master power. Chen Tian was a little surprised. Colossus nodded. Yes, because my ability is tempered. After entering that state, the strength of the whole body will skyrocket, and it is difficult to fully grasp it at first. The professor suggested that I could practice drawing. Because the brush is a little lighter and heavier, the effects are different. It allows me to master every bit of strength in my hand, so as not to hurt my friends. So that's the case. Chen Tian was a little interested. Peter, can I try it? Recently, as his physique has grown faster and faster, and his spiritual attributes have slowed down, Chen Tian felt that his mastery of physical strength was not as perfect as it was at the beginning. Although there is no problem yet, he feels that he should pay attention to this problem. Please like my videos and subscribe for more videos.